right, hi everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Physics. This is Joseph Guzman. So before I talk about today's episode, I have a quick announcement. Irene and I would like to introduce our book club, right? So basically the idea is we choose a book and we'll discuss it on its own dedicated episode on the podcast, right? We're not sponsored. We don't receive any money for this. It seemed like it would probably, given the circumstances of the world right now, be a good habit to pick up on. And if you guys were interested, we'd love to have you guys join in reading these books with us. So that being said, we have your first reading assignment for you. It's called Conscious, A Brief Guide to the Fundamental Mystery of the Mind by Annika Harris. Right, so I will provide a link for that in the description of where you can get the book. Again, I receive no money, commissions, anything from that. It's just a place where I think you could get a good price for the book, right? But so it's a very short book. It's about 100 pages. I have it right here in my hands, and it is about the size of my hand, right? So we thought this might be a good book to start because it matches a lot of our interests in philosophy and neuroscience and so on, and could maybe tie into like a broader conversation that we want to have on this podcast. And the cherry on top is that, you know, if you can dedicate a whole day to it, you could probably finish a book in that day, right? So we plan to record that podcast either the next one or the following, right? So roughly speaking, you can expect us to start talking about the book about a month from now. So if you're listening to this now and you happen to have read the book before we publish the episode, go ahead and feel free to send us an email with any questions you have or any specifics from the book that you'd love us to cover, right? So anyways, that being said, let's start talking about today's episode. So today we are interviewing my friend Edward Benavidez, and I met Ed in undergraduate physics at Cal State Long Beach. I mentioned this at the start, but he was the president of the Society of Physics Students just before me. And so we were really close friends for multiple years. And so now that we're talking to him on the podcast, we get to understand his journey into physics, which is a quite lengthy one because he originally started off as a psychology major, and he basically finished his entire degree in psychology before switching to physics, right? So it's pretty interesting to hear his motivations and his journey throughout his whole schooling career, right? And so now he's currently a PhD candidate at University of Massachussetts Lowell, and he's working in radar physics, so that's very interesting. So that covers most of the conversation about his background and his journey through physics, and we talk at length about the culture in grad school and physics in general, as well as towards the end we end up talking about some interesting things like ghosts and Bigfoot and how radar can, provide some constraints on the prospects of whether that could be reality, right? So anyways, it was a very interesting conversation, and if that sounds like interesting to you as well, then please stick around and give us a follow on whatever listening platform you're listening to this on currently. Please leave us a rating. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter at beyond_physics. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. This is Beyond the Physics. All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Beyond the Physics podcast. This is your host, Joseph Guzman, and I'm joined with my co-host,
Irene Roman.
And today we have a very special guest from my undergrad experience. Why don't you introduce yourself? Who are we talking with today?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me, Joe and Irene. My name is Edward Benavides, and I am one of the physics homies of Joseph.
Yeah, right. So we go like I said, way back to undergrad. Um, Met at SPS, right? The Society of Physics Students.
Yep. That's the club to be.
Right. Yeah. It's like you said, you strive for like a social component to it, and it was a very social club. And you were the president before me,
Yeah.
right? So we have that shared experience at least. Um, but yeah. Anyways, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
It's an honor to be here, man.
Yeah. So, being your friend for the past, how many years is it now? Half a decade at least, right?
Yep. 2014, spring 2014 at least.
Right. Okay, so 6 years. There are some things that I know about you, but I don't know the details, right? So it'd be interesting to talk about it. Right? And so if you could, let's just start at the beginning, right? It's good to have a sense of where everyone's coming from, like with their family background and stuff like that. So just to get out of the way, you are currently studying physics, right? You have your PhD candidate, right?
Yes. Yes. UMass Lowell.
Right. Exactly. So, is that a common experience in your family? Are they scientists, or what was your experience growing up?
Well, as a kid, I was put into the gifted and talented classes. So somehow I tested in. The funny part is, the first week of class, I was always put in with the remedial students. And it always felt off because I would look around and I'm like, I don't recognize anybody. Usually when you're in elementary, you know your friends because every class, every year, you follow them. Every year in the beginning was different. So I was like, yeah, this doesn't feel right. And then I can just tell like I felt out of place. And then eventually they figured out the error and put me into the gifted and talented. So at least they thought I had potential. I unfortunately did not fulfill that potential because I was a class clown and I wanted to just goof around. So I didn't try very hard in elementary, middle school, or high school for sure. I just kind of skated by. So I felt very aimless. But the potential was there. Like there's if I put my mind to it, I can do something. As far as my family goes, I'm the only scientist in any field, in any generation or anything. I'm the only one who's gone into science. My brother does business. My sister does daycare, theory or whatever, development. My other cousin did communications. And so a lot of the social sciences. But I'm the very first scientist in the family of any sort.
Okay, right. So that's pretty interesting. Maybe you could then could you expound on like why you think it is the case? What got you into physics in science in the first place? What drew you into the field?
Oh, that's a journey right there. Because to get to where I'm at now, I had to take many detours. So going back to what I said earlier about not being applied or not knowing what to do, I didn't have much guidance in high school. So I know what I had my hobbies. My hobbies growing up were playing basketball. I know, right? Surprising. Basketball, and I liked to dismantle things like my dad's stereo system. I dismantled that. Old computers, dismantled it. I wanted to see what was inside and try to get a workings with it. But I didn't know you can translate that into a science or an engineering, right? It's just like, I just knew I liked to do that. But I didn't have much guidance in high school. So when it came down to apply or even look at college, that wasn't even a real option in the sense that no one told me, you can go to a university, you can go to a Cal State. It took me until I graduated to figure out like, oh, wait, I should go to college. But by that time, community college was the only route. So I enrolled to Cerritos College like a week before the semester started. And by that time they had very limited courses. So I could only take remedial art history or remedial English, with once a week classes. So it was terrible. But one thing that did lead me into that, because I was so unprepared, I just chose a major at random, kind of. I looked at which one had the least amount of prerequisites, and it was psychology. So that was my foot in the door to college. It's like, all right, let me pick a major that I don't have to worry about getting these core classes right away. You know, a light bulb kind of switched in my head once I realized that I had to pay for my schooling. These classes came out of my pocket, books, all that good stuff. So I somehow became a very serious student at that point. I was like, no, this isn't a game anymore. This is costing me $600 a semester. I got to take it serious. So even though I started off with really basic classes, I was doing pretty well. Like, I'm gonna do my best. I still didn't have much guidance. Also, I didn't do my part. I didn't actually go to a counselor. So this is like a two-way street right there. I didn't really try, but then I didn't really know anybody who's doing any sciences. All my friends that I had made initially were in the social sciences. But one thing that I did find is a lot of people who go into psychology or sociology, some of them have aspirations to become medical doctors, right? Because they figure out, oh, you don't have to have a bio degree. You can just take the prerequisite courses, the chemistry, the biology, the physics, take your core science classes, get your degree, take the MCAT, and you're in. So from that point, I had kind of an idea. So at some point, I thought, I'm going to try to be a medical doctor. Why not? And my GPA was really high at this point. But I ran into my very first roadblock. I took an intro to chemistry class, right? It's like Chem 110. It's like the basic one before you go to the lab one. And I got a D. I failed. And I was like, oh, I can't be a doctor if you get a D, so that really sucked. But I figured, you know what, that's fine. I transferred to UC Irvine. My grades were good enough I can transfer to UC Irvine. And I figured, you know what, let me just continue on with psychology. But I still felt like that wasn't the real route for me. I kind of just kept going because I was getting a lot of pressure from my parents at the point. They're like, oh, you've been at community college for 3 years. Shouldn't you be at university now? Shouldn't you, there's like an expectation of a time frame that was being put on me. And I was trying to fulfill this external time frame. So I figured, all right, I can go and I can, finish whatever. I was lucky enough that once I got to UC Irvine, I made a much broader group of friends. I joined a club called the Flying Samaritans. So they're a pre-medical group that goes down to Tecate, Mexico, and they bring doctors and dentists. I still wanted to do something. So I joined as a translator. I would go down with them, translate, drive, and eventually my senior year at the university, I became the clinic coordinator. So I was the one planning the trips, bringing down the doctors. So I climbed my way in there. And that felt good. That was, for me, that was like enough of a, good feeling, like, oh, I can't be a medical doctor, but I can help out in some way. So that kind of quelled that sort of need. But I still felt like psychology wasn't my true calling. So I was very miserable. Like day one, I go into the giant lecture, 250 plus students. I looked around and I thought, no, this can't be right. It sucked. So I was trying to find a way out. In my own way, I was trying to figure out what do I pick? What can I do? How do I get out of this situation? So I started dropping into some classes of my friend who's a mechanical engineer at the time. So she would take me to her classes. I go into the control theory, a bunch of her math classes. These are large lecture halls. No one takes attendance. You can slip in and out. No one knows. And I was the only person paying attention. Everyone else was asleep or on their phone or on the laptop. I was the only person who was taking notes, looking at the board, and and actually answering or asking questions. I mean, they were pretty basic, but I was actually engaging in the class, and I wasn't even enrolled in those classes. So my friend would tell me all the time, like, dude, change your major, be an engineer, do something, you know? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. So that day I walked into a counselor. Granted, I'm already a junior at UC Irvine with a bunch of, with like two quarters in under my belt. And I told her, like, I don't like psychology. I want to change my major. And she was like, okay, let's look at what you have. Like, she's like, what do you want to be? I was like, let's go with mechanical engineering. So then she looks at my transcript and she says, no, you have no math and no physics. No, like there's no science classes here except for that D that I got for, you know, my basic chem class. She's like, I'm sorry, there's not enough time for you to take the prerequisites, get up to speed, and then graduate on time. So they gave me a big, you know, FU sort of. I did not like that. So I felt like that it hurt, but at the same time, it made me, I don't know, like a fire just lit under me. And I was like, no, I'm going to make this happen out of spite or out of something, but I wanted to make this happen. So I kind of drew up this plan. I was like, all right, I have to take these science classes. I probably won't be able to get the degree at UC Irvine. And I was happy with that. You know what, that's fine. It doesn't matter where you start or where you finish, but it's like the classes and the journey and what you learn. That's the most important part because that's what you take with you. So I drew up this plan where I was gonna finish the degree and go back to school. So I, you know, stayed. So I was at UC Irvine from 2009 to 2012. It was 3 years there. And I took all the classes. What I did do is I took the more difficult route. For their psychology, they have cognitive science and then behavioral science. I went the cognitive science route because that involves more neurobiology, applied, you know, that was what I took. So it was a little bit more intense, but it was more interesting than the behavioral stuff. Somehow, somewhere along the way, I miscalculated the number of units I needed to graduate. So I was short one class. I could still graduate, right? You could always walk early and then take the class, you know. But somehow I thought I did the math right and I figured I was one class short. So at that point I said, all right, fuck this. I'm gonna walk early just to kind of send my goodbyes and then just leave a class short and then finish it at some point down the line. You know, like that's not important right now. So I walked. My parents were super happy, but at the same time I told them, don't get too happy. You know, this isn't you might have to wait for another one, the real one come on the line.
Little did they know.
Little did they know, exactly.
How long this journey would become.
Oh yeah, this is literally the first leg, you know. So yeah, I graduated, quote unquote, June 15th, 2012, UC Irvine. And the next day I enrolled in more math classes at Cerritos College. Again, I was like, all right, I'm going to take the math classes, which are then prerequisite for the physics classes, you know, all that stuff. And I still had in mind that I wanted to be a mechanical engineer. So when I went back, I was thinking mechanical engineering, you know. So I, you know, started the school again, and my parents were like, what are you doing? Why aren't you looking for a job? You know, you should be working now. And I told them, no, I fucked up. I can't do that. I need to do this. And they're like, oh my God, are you kidding right now? You're joking, right? How long is this going to take? And I told them, don't worry about it. I'm going to make this happen no matter how long it takes. So they kind of both rolled their eyes at me and said, you know what, fine. It's better than you doing drugs or being a bum. If you're at least going to school, that's something, you know. So to, fall, August 2012, I'm back in school again, starting from the bottom, taking the math classes. Luckily, because I was able to take classes before they ran out, I was able to get better times. I was actually take the classes, the prerequisites. So I was flying through these classes. I was taking 5, 6 classes, like 18 units, and I was being successful. This is the first time, like it felt good. I felt really good what I was doing. Like this felt right. So when it feels right, it doesn't feel like work at all. When you're up late night studying, it doesn't feel like you're up late. Time just melts away. You're starting to pick up things. I was on a groove. This was the beginning of the groove, and I was hitting it hard. It was coming to fruition. So, I finally take the first baby intro physics class, the algebra based one. So I go in, and I must have gotten a weird section because everybody was a bio major in this one. So I thought maybe I got into the wrong one. But it just turns out that particular semester, there was a lot of people who needed to transfer who were biology. So they all took this one professor who was supposed to be quote unquote easy. So, I wasn't the kind of person who would talk to people and say, oh, who should I take? Do I take this professor or this one? I didn't care. I'm there to just take the class and go. So I just happened to take the easy one. And he wasn't actually easy. What he did do was explain very well, and he took his time. The material was still difficult, but he was very effective in getting the idea across, and then you just got it. So in that way, he was easy. As other professors were like, figure out yourself. You're smart, without getting too much into the details. So, I took the class and I loved it. I was like, this is great. I don't want to be a mechanical engineer anymore. Like physics seems so interesting that I can see myself just doing that. So I forgot about the engineering part. And I'm like, I'm going to focus on physics. And I started doing some research, and I was like, oh, okay, so to quote unquote make it in the field, my research told me that you needed to go into grad school and get a PhD. So I figured, all right, that's exactly what I'm going to do. That point is still 4 years down the line, but that was when I made the plan that I was going to work towards that, so that's the second part of the journey, the ball getting through. So I take the actual calculus-based physics class, and this is where it became very fortunate that I felt like a lot of the pieces were falling in the right place. So the first day of class, the Professor Enriquez, I still remember him. He's an ass, but he's all right. The very first thing he said to class was like, the department got a grant. We got some money. We want to hire 2 tutors. Can I? And then before he finished, my hand was up. And I was like, me, I'll do it. And then the other guy, Billy Lau, he raised his hand. So he's like, all right, you two, see me after class. And then he starts his lecture. So after class, I go up there and he's like, well, you guys are in luck. We want tutors. You guys are the first two to raise your hand. Go talk to so-and-so and we'll get you started. And to me, that was the perfect job. Up to that point, I did a lot of menial work, warehouses, stuff like that. This is the first time that I did something that was using my brain. And I got very lucky. This was like the best opportunity possible. So I got the tutoring job, and I took it very serious, and I really tried to be the best tutor that they had. Like I had people flocking to my hours, which felt really good. That was a really nice feeling. But because I was able to be on campus and work on campus, that helps with the studying after class. It really helped me out so that I can really focus on my studies. Plus, with physics, it doesn't hurt to review some of the basics. You could always draw basic principles and apply it in more complex. Yeah, you can use Hamiltonian, but sometimes good old Newton, you know, it works just fine. So keeping that material fresh in my mind really helped with other aspects coming down the line. And at this point, I met like a really good group of friends that we really pushed each other. You know, we had similar backgrounds. These guys were working warehouse jobs too, you know, restaurant jobs, and they're like, oh, I want to be an engineer. I want to do chemical engineering, or I want to do mechanical. So we met each other. We knew our struggle, and we formed a really tight knit group, and we pushed each other. And like, we didn't see each other as competition. You know, it's like, just because we both apply to this school, I don't see you as my enemy. If you get in, great. There's plenty of other opportunities. So, you know, I think that was very helpful, and there was a non-competitive vibe. It was like real friendship. So that helped a lot. And then some of these people came over to Long Beach. So at this point, I'm full-fledged. I'm a physics major now. I have a physics job, tutoring. You know, it's time for me to transfer. And I'm looking at schools, and the only school that took me was Long Beach. I applied to a lot of schools, and Long Beach was the only one. And I was so happy. It was like I don't know if anybody's ever been more happy to go to Long Beach than I did. You know, most people be like doing backflips if they got into UCLA or something. I wasn't even that happy when I got to UC Irvine as I was to get into Cal State Long Beach, because I knew by going there, I was going to do I was going to get my bachelor's in physics. So I was damn sure going to make the most of it there. So It was the best decision I ever made so far.
Well, that's great. This is a little bit of a callback. I didn't want to interrupt the story. But there's one loose end here for me that maybe you could help me tighten up. Okay. Could you elaborate on why you felt psychology wasn't a good fit? Like, how did you know that you didn't want to do that?
Oh, yeah. How do I know? It was the very first class, the intro class. We just sat in there and they're talking about the history. So I understand history is important when you're trying to build foundations, right? In physics, we'll talk about like the early experiments by, you know, the Renaissance, like Bernoulli. Oh, he figured out air pressure. You know, rudimentary, but they're still correct. You know, we're not disproving Bernoulli. We're not disproving Galileo. You know, we're using their previous experiments, and it forms a valid, still useful principle that we still teach because it's still useful, you know. With psychology, I felt like they were still peddling Sigmund Freud stuff when it was like disproven 100 years ago, like almost immediately. Like, nah, it's not all about mama and sex, you know. There's more complex than that. But the way they presented it felt like it was more than just a incorrect theory, you know. And a lot of it felt like you could not really prove. It's difficult when you have a behavioral problem or an organic brain injury that manifests into a behavioral problem. You could only do so many experiments to, you know, that find an answer. You kind of have to do your best. And to me, that it wasn't satisfactory, you know. Mm-hmm. But that's because I wasn't happy with the behavioral aspect of psychology. You know, it was kind of interesting to know sometimes some of the reasons why people do the things they do, but I wasn't trying to do it so that I can analyze people. Like, to me, that was like using it the wrong way. Because I know a lot of people who are psych students also like, yeah, talk to me. I can analyze your boyfriend, your mother, your dad or something. It's like, no, you're not even a clinically trained psychologist. You're the worst ever. Like, just be quiet. Like, you're a person who knows little and does a lot of damage because you're not trained properly. So, but like I said, some of the scientific part, like the harder science, cognitive neurosci, where they're learning the biological structure of the brain and how these manifest, the behavioral, frontal lobe. Oh, we have higher learning. We have, our cognitive seed is there. That means that our behaviors are there. Those were interesting because I had something concrete, the brain, divided into its structures. And the way they learned about these impairments is that you wait until somebody hits their head really hard. Something gets fucked up, or sorry, I can't say fucked up.
You can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you wait until someone bunks their head really hard and see what changes. And then once they're dead, you dissect the brain and you're like, oh, this person became a really rude, foul-mouthed, crass person after they hit their forehead. The forehead must be inhibiting their, more crass nature. So I thought that was kind of interesting. They use lesions on the brain caused by injuries, and there's only well after the fact that they're dead that you figure out. Like, so in that case, it was kind of like a really interesting puzzle piece built over 140 years of studying the brain. That they're pretty confident. Oh, the amygdala, yeah, emotion. Oh, the frontal lobe, yep, that is conscious thought. Occipital, yep, that's vision. So I think that harder science really attracted me. So I figured, you know what, I kind of want to go down a more hard science route.
I see. So if maybe I could rephrase what I'm hearing in terms of like our first podcast guest, Terrence, he said something like, there's something just so satisfying about solving a physics problem because it's like when it's right, and you kind of just know it because you're working with like the most fundamental forces in nature most of the time, right? So with these toy models, it's just like, right, there's a satisfaction that comes from its correctness, right? And then when it comes to like the social sciences, like you're saying, there's so many variables at play, so many parameters that, the best you can do is normally correlation, right?
Yep.
So
correlation in a very long longitudinal study and gather as much data. So it's a little different. If it hits different.
Yeah. So, right. So, I mean, it's that desire for, what would you say? A more fundamental understanding or just a more clear-cut answer that drove you to something like physics rather than psychology?
It was definitely the concreteness of it. It's a tangible thing. I don't know, numbers, symbols spoke louder to me than abstract behavior and possible explanations. It's really hard to build a super concrete theory that can predict. Think about it. If you bump your head, two people can bump their head in the same spot and get completely different outcomes. That's not what you want in the theory. You want repeatable actions. You do this and X happens. We want that. And that appealed to me a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so you worked us up to Long Beach. That's a large majority of the story. Perhaps when Jesus was on recently, he talked briefly about his feelings of the physics program here. And now that you're in grad school, I think you have a little bit more perspective on the matter. Maybe you could talk about
you as well.
Yes, but you're the guest, so maybe you could talk about what your perception was of Long Beach's physics program and how it impacted you, and if you want to talk about SPS or whatever.
Okay, yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, I was super happy to get to Long Beach, more than anyone should have probably, but I was happy to do what I was gonna do. So I kind of knew that I was starting off on a kind of a bad foot, because my GPA at that point, cumulative, if you add, Cerritos, I was a 4.0 student there. But at UC Irvine, I was a C student. So my overall GPA was just under 3.0. So that caused a lot of anxiety, because doing my research, I realized that you have to have a certain GPA to get into grad school. So I already knew that I had a lot of work cut out for me. So the other thing that I knew is that I didn't have any research experience. So one thing that I was very lucky to come across is that the summer before I started Long Beach, I was in the HSI Summer Bridge program. So I was able to get my feet wet with some research. And my first research advisor was Dr. Kwan. And at that point, she was very interested in like measurement, atomic force microscopy, graphene. She wanted one of her students to find graphene. Now, I was kind of working with, at that point, Andre. Remember Andrea?
Yeah.
Fancy man?
Yeah.
Yeah, Andrea and Ashken. So those two were my lab homies. And she assigned me to work with the atomic force microscope and said, go find graphene. I was like, cool, how do I do this? So turns out, just get lead and some tape. So I did exactly what those guys did who got a Nobel Prize. I just did what they did. Take some Scotch tape and, analyze the flakes that were left over. What did take a bit of time to learn was the AFM. That is a very tricky device, especially when you're loading the cantilever. I broke several of them, and she got very mad at me. She's like, these are not cheap. Stop breaking them. I was like, I can't. I have ham hands, and I'll drop them or breathe on the thing, and the cantilever breaks. It's very bad. So sometimes I'd have Ashcan just load it. Like, dude, can you load it for me, and then I'll take over. But I was very lucky, so that I had before my career started, I had my first research experience, and it went great. I enjoyed it more than probably anybody should when you're just sitting all day with tape, and analyzing, profiles. But to me, it was exciting, and I hyped it up. And at the end of the 10 weeks, we had our presentation. Luckily, the day before, I found a layer of graphene. So I was very happy. I didn't want to say, yeah, I spent 10 weeks and I couldn't find it. I had one little piece that I was able to present. And I hyped up my project so much, it was great. Like, everybody was more excited than they should have been, because it was very, very boring. But I was like, graphene is a material of the future. You can do this, you can do that, thermal properties. And everybody's like, whoa, this is cool. But really, it's like, I played with tape and I used a microscope to find it. So, at this point, like, I'm getting excited. So it doesn't matter what I was doing. I was very excited to do it. And the second thing I realized from that I took from UC Irvine was getting involved in school helps. Join a club, do something. But if you're involved in school in some way, it makes your experience better. It makes your experience better. You get more out of it. And day one, I was like, all right, where's the SPS? I'm going to join the Society of Physics Students. And I go in and I'm like, it smells like Doritos in here. And everybody's quiet. And, they're like, what's up, guys? My name's Edward. I'm a brand new student here. And the first person to dap me up was Jalen. He was like, what's up, dude? I was like, what's up? And then Kevin was like, what's up? And Chris and Kayla, like, Like the old guard was there, and she who should not be named was there too. And, so I felt like this, like, all right, this is going to be a good start. And I tried to do the club rush that's in September. I volunteered for that. They did a movie night. I volunteered for that. They didn't do too many events, but whatever they did, I was there. But primarily, I was surrounding myself with people who are doing the same thing as me. I figured that is key right there. If, I was starting off, some people are graduating. That's a fountain of advice right there. Like, oh, where are you going? What are you doing? What are you doing after graduating? That's valuable information to get. So day one, I was like, I looked out and found SPS, and I was like, I'm gonna stay here until I'm gone. And because I was the most consistent person, they made me president. I didn't want to be president of SPS. Like, I just wanted to hang around. I didn't want any responsibilities. Can I just use your room? I want to sleep on the couch, and I want to take some stuff from the fridge. That's all I wanted, but they're like, nope, you've been here since day one, and we all voted you in. And I was like, crap. All right, fuck it. I'll take the job. I'll do it. But that was down the line. There was one thing before that, about the research experience. I figured I needed to get as much research experience as I needed. So, spring semester 2015, I applied to a bunch of REUs. I wanted another summer experience because I enjoyed the first one so much. And I applied to probably 25 different programs, and I was accepted into one, MAC REU, Material Science at UC Riverside. And I was like, yes, this is great. I remember getting the notification at a concert they held at Csulb Long Beach for, oh my God, what's his name? He was a R&B singer. He was there. It was in April. Mario? It was somebody. I'll remember at some point, but it was a concert, and I was hanging out with Jalen and a few other the SPS people, and I got the email, and I'm like, yes, I'm going to Riverside. That was the highlight. The backup was, at that point, Csulb Long Beach had just implemented a material science program, so I was going to be one of the first students to start the research over the summer. The pilots group they had. I remember applying to that one and going up to Gredig. I thought he was a very scary man, and but apparently it went well, and they offered me the position, and I turned it down because of Riverside, and I told Lizzie, I was like, hey, you should take it. And I think she got in. She took my spot. So Riverside was great. Like, that was a good summer, but it was also a very, very difficult summer because this one, research at university was a lot more difficult and more involved than the research at Csulb Long Beach. Csulb Long Beach was like, yay, congratulations, you're here. Baby steps, go. Riverside was like, trial by fire. You're going to stay up. You're going to, kiss your freedom goodbye. I got my first taste of indentured servitude at Riverside. But it was great. Oh my God, it was so great. I was like, yes, I'm going to wake up at 2 a.m. to go use the Raman spectroscopy machine, or I'm going to do the electron microscope. Like, we were scheduled at all random times. And I would go with my lab mates, and that was a different experience, and I liked it. I really, really liked it. I got very close with my Riverside lab mates. The professor, there's a reason why I'm not at Riverside and I'm not pursuing material science. He was very demanding, and he micromanaged to the point where I couldn't deal 4 years of that. It would drive me insane. 10 weeks was enough. You know, I was like, no, I can't do more. Had he been more reasonable, I 100% would be at Riverside doing material science, because the research was very, very good. I enjoyed it. He was actually a physics professor doing chemistry. So he would teach physical chemistry. So in his lab, he had half chemists, half physicists, and they would create these two-dimensional flat material, just like graphene, but using molybdenum disulfide. And then, so you would create it, and then you would make devices from there. So you had a group making devices, testing their, the electrical properties, IV curves, all that good stuff. And then trying other alloys. And my graduate advisor, well, I was paired up with a graduate student. Her name is Sarah Bobick. She's a materials science engineer at Intel now. But she was my graduate mentor. She's from Florida, so she had this really thick Southern accent. And I loved it. Like, keep talking, just explain everything to me, with your Southern accent. And she was a really good mentor. She was tough, but at the same time, like, forgiving. So I felt like my, try by fire was alleviated by that. So that research experience made me very confident that I can, even if I was doing well in the classes, it's one thing to do well in classes and another one to do well in research, because a lot of times research is different than taking the courses. So when I was striving and doing really well in the research part, that kind of settled all of the doubt that I had, mostly about, can I do this and should I continue? This was like, yes, I can do this. Let's go further. Let's see what comes from there. So starting senior year, I was president of SPS. It was forced on me, but it was a good decision. I'm glad I said yes, because that's where I really got close with you guys, Joe, Alan, Juanito, the whole group. Like, we got really, really close. And that's because I knew that I had one goal in that semester for that year. It was like, we're going to hang out and we're going to just do stuff. It doesn't have to be academic, but we're going to do something. We're going to, hang out and actually try to be friends outside of school, not just inside. So that was my one goal, and I think I did all right with that. That SPS room turned into chaos after, because eventually some other people took that and then just went downhill. But I can say that I started that trend of it going downhill.
So I have a question for you in terms of, your experience in the research group. More of the emotional experience. I would be interested in hearing about. Do you have any anxieties, I guess, throughout working in the research group? And I'm asking this because I personally kind of have a problem in terms of feeling like I can immerse myself within the group cultures in general with research. I have, like, I guess, a lot of anxiety with afraid, I guess, imposter syndrome kind of situation for me. So I wondered what your experience was in that regard, and how you could, and if you did have a negative experiences, how you overcame them.
Yeah. Oh, that is a great question. Thank you for asking that. 100% imposter syndrome is for real, and I think everybody fights that. One thing that I thought was hilarious was, it just takes me back now, that the very first day for my HSI summer bridge research, right? I go into the lab and I meet Andrea and Ashkan. Andrea looks like Jesus, like, picture a Renaissance picture, and he looks like Jesus from the Renaissance picture. And he has an accent, so that's kind of intimidating. But Ashkan, like, it's funny, knowing him now, he kind of like, he claims to know more than he really knows. Let's just it that way. The way he talks, kind of arrogant. So very first day, I've never had any research experience, and I'm talking to them, and I'm just kind of like wide-eyed, and like, oh my God, these are real physics people, and I'm helping them. What can I even do to help? I know nothing. I'm like, a grunt. I can lift things. I was really good at lifting things. Like, yeah, I can do that, but how can I contribute to this group in a, meaningful way? So I would always ask them questions. And at this point, they were studying classical mechanics. So they're going to take, what's the professor's name? Bill's class.
Oh,
Yeah.
Bill.
Yeah, they're going to take his class. And I remember looking over, I'm like, oh, what are you guys studying? Like classical mechanics. So they had the ghosting book. And I was like, what's that? And I'm like asking a bunch of questions. And I just thought they were like the smartest people ever. It wasn't until after I realized they didn't know shit, because they're just like me. Like, like we know enough of something, but it's like the more you know, the more you realize what you don't know, So we can say like, there's a whole breadth of knowledge out there. I at least can contribute something because I know that tiny piece. But when you don't know anything, then they look like geniuses, or so like you put them on a pedestal. So, I put those two guys on a pedestal the very first time meeting them. Slowly, that pedestal came shorter and shorter, and I realized, they're just like me. That's fine. Like the scariness went away. But then that scariness happened again once I got to Riverside, because now it's like, oh my God, this is a university. This is not a Cal State. This is not a state school. This is higher level. And then this lab was massive. They had like 50 people. I was going from 2, now 50, with all sorts of different personalities. That was intimidating, because the only person up to that point that I felt was like a real scientist, or I admired, was Jocelyn, because she was like top of the class, chemistry and everything. So like I was like, I want to be like her. So I'm gonna do it. I want to be like a really good student, and I'm gonna, ask good questions. And I get to Riverside, and I'm like, so what do you guys do? I'm trying to break the ice, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm in PChem, and I took this, and they're talking about Schrodinger's equation. I hadn't taken quantum at that point. And I just kind of felt I wanted to blend it, like to be like them, like, yeah, totally, Schrodinger's equation. I saw that once. And they're like, really? Can you, like, and then they called me on the bullshit. They're like, oh, what's the wave function for this particle in the box? I'm like, I forgot. I was like, I forgot. I need a review. But they caught on. I was like, ugh. But they didn't do it to be mean, because I realized that group was super helpful. They're like, they kind of want to prepare you, because they're like, the professor was an ass. He would jump on you if you said anything and you thought that if you were like had a little bit of doubt, he like, boom, they're gonna get you. So they were trying to prepare me. They're like, no, you gotta be prepared and be sure of what you're saying. And if you don't know something, ask us. We're gonna help you out. We want to make sure that you're on your bearings. Like, so they were saving me from the professor, which was, I'm thankful for that. But they also were super nice, and I realized that lab setting, unless you're a terrible person, you want to make things work in your lab. You want to be able to communicate and be cordial and have a working relationship with your lab mates. No, you don't want stress. You don't want people's egos and attitudes getting in the way, because then you can't get stuff done. And I think, like me, I adopted that. Like, no, I don't think there's any huge ego, except for the professor. He was the ego, but everyone else was calming that. But I remember asking my mentor. She was, one of the things I really liked about her is that she was very honest. And I told her, do you feel like, imposter syndrome? Like, I feel it. And she said, yeah, I'm going through it. she had suffered one thing, like this was crazy. She almost died at that lab. She was electrocuted and she was like in a coma for a few months because
Wow.
she touched live wires on this molecular epoxy beam device. She was like attaching some cables, and she got electrocuted. She survived. She was in a coma for a few months, and like that was like 2 years ago. So she had it was a long process for her to get back into like being a grad student and doing stuff because um, she had a long recovery, but so that added to her. She's like, yeah, I had this accident. I felt like I wasn't contributing to the lab, and I felt like a drain, this and that. But like, the professor gave me a chance, and he built it up slowly, slowly, and slowly. She's like outside of that, like you're gonna feel that, but you have a support system. You have your lab mates, you have your friends, your family. This imposter syndrome kind of goes away when you have a really good support structure. And that's something that I was lucky to have. And when I had those doubts, they were able to bring me back and say, you're good, you're doing just fine. Look at where you are. You made it here because of your skills, and you're gonna make it through because of that. But I definitely got those waves at Long Beach and Riverside.
So you definitely think then you're telling me it's essential, I guess, for you. It was very beneficial to have a mentor like her, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was, I guess, open enough to be able to have that kind of discussion with you about imposter syndrome. Did you
yeah.
find
And I was like,
anyone else in your lab that you opened up to
oh yeah. So
about?
there's Sarah, and then there was the guys. There's always a group of guys that like bros. I can say they were bros. Um, Side story, but I think it's kind of funny. They gave me an initiation rite for that lab. So I went back to their dorm and we were drinking, and then one of the guys brought out a stun gun, and he's like, "We're all gonna get shocked. This is our initiation, right?"
Oh my gosh.
So they bring it on. They're like, "Pra, pra, 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 pra." It's this thing is like sparking. Like, "Are you sure?" They're like, "Yep, everybody did it. Everybody did it. We're gonna." I was like, "All right, let's do this." So I got one on the arm and one on the leg. I got two shocks. It hurt, but it wasn't that bad. But
So,
I was pretty drunk, so I think, you know,
so that's
um,
hazing, right?
that would be considered hazing now. I thought that was
Yeah.
something normal, but eventually, I wasn't the only one. They actually, all of them did it too. I was just the first one to kick it off. And then everybody else was like, "Oh, I can't." He did it twice. I can't look weak. So then everybody took one. But yeah, that was put it that way. I was very well received and loved by the lab after that. They were very sad when my time was up after the summer, and they really wanted me to apply to grad school and join the lab because we were doing some good work, and they're like, "Yeah, you fit in. I think you'll do fine." I just told them I don't like the professor. I can't do it. And they're like, "Understandable. Have a good day." Like that makes total sense.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know if I would have been able to make it through, to be honest. You telling me about that professor, that would have been intimidating enough to scare me to kind of ghost the lab or something like that. So I give you a
But
lot of credit for that.
I would say this: he gets it done. All his students get really good jobs. You just have to make it through it. They all get jobs at Intel, hot, silicon chip manufacturing, Northrop Grumman. Like they're highly sought after, or they get positions. He's German, so he has connections to German universities. So all his students at some point during their time would do a year internship in Germany. You know, and I thought like, oh, that'd be cool. I can go to Germany, but I was like, no, I don't want to work with him. You know,
Yeah,
I couldn't
definitely.
do it, but a lot of people did. So kudos to them who made it through.
Do you think that it's necessary for an advisor to be that way to kind of develop, create, I guess, or help students get to that high level where they're getting high paying or, you know, good positions?
I think it's like, I feel like it's sometimes like a parenting effect. You know, people will take some of the things they learned from their parents, and their parents took it from their parents. I feel like he probably came from that environment in Germany that worked for him, and that's how he's going to do it here. You know, be, you know, tough, but at the same time, very productive. His students are extremely prolific, and they get great paying jobs. Like, it's worked, and no one can tell him otherwise. And I think for me, that doesn't quite work. I like my advisor that I have now. He's great. We work great. There's a great relationship there, and I'm happy with that work environment. You know, I would have had to rely too much on my lab mates to survive. I was like, oh my God, I have to cling on to them for dear life, because we're all making it through this experience, you know. And I just didn't want to be miserable for 4 years, you know.
Yeah.
Right. So, going back to Long Beach, do you think you could highlight for us like any differences that you see from your undergrad physics experience to where you are now, like in the department or whatever, like the culture?
Mm-hmm. I think Long Beach culture, I think it's developed. I feel like they're really trying to bring up the level of the university. Their focus is definitely on teaching physics, but at a high school, or like as a professional job, like outside university, like that. I feel like that's their thing. And actually, if you look at the number of master students that come out, like Cal State Long Beach leads all Cal States and some universities with the number of students that graduate with masters. And a lot of that is like great. You know, they want to get us out there. But I feel like some of the curriculum or some of the labs can kind of get pushed through, and it just makes people like suffer through them and might not get the most out of it as they can. I feel like some professors, Lucic, don't give a shit, and they kind of like sink or swim, man. You get through my class, you cool. If not, that's cool too, you know. That's kind of the vibe I got with some. But there's others. Pickett, he's an excellent professor. You know, he gets his point across, and I think he's really trying to bring up the level of the physics department. So to me, that's a positive. I just feel like they need to, if you're going to improve the quality of classes, sometimes I think you have to get more effective professors that can get new talent to help. You know, there's some Nishino, you know, I'm sure, you know, brilliant man, gets stuff done. It's very hard to get a lot out of him. You know, some classes just like, you just got to write stuff down. You know, there's no wiggle room. There's no like, nope, it's sequence from the book, beginning to end. You're like, no, that's fine. I don't even have to attend. I just have the book, and I'm already there. Pickett, you know, what I really enjoyed, and I think this is a great thing, is the interactive portion. You know, he'll stop class and, all right, everybody go to your, you know, wall and start drawing, and, you know, do something. You know, that's the collaborative nature, because physics is very collaborative. You know, you have your own part, but at the same time, you have to communicate your ideas. You talk to your advisor, fellow grad students. You're getting hints, you're getting ideas, and you're trying to build your model, your understanding of physics. So I think that social interaction part is great. That's also very unique, because I have not seen that at UML, that level of interaction that we got from Pickett's class for our mechanics and quantum class. That's unique, and I think that's a great thing. I just wish that there was a little bit more talent to express those ideas at Cal State Long Beach.
Right. So does that mean that's not your experience at Lowell? Like the professors that taught you there, you have a different perception of them?
From at UMass Lowell, I've been, I would say, more happy with the professors than like as a whole. If I just look at all the courses that I've taken as a whole, I've had more positive feelings out of the class, that like I've learned something or I took something out of it than I did at Long Beach. Long Beach was specific to a few professors. You know, Pickett, if he teaches these two courses. Wang, if he teaches thermo, like energy, you know, I still remember that. I actually learned thermo from him, even though it's like a little hard to understand him. But I think at UML they have pretty effective lecturers in some of their. There's a Lusick in every university for sure, and I happen to get that for UML and quantum. So I think for me, that's one of the reasons why quantum has been so difficult, is that I wasn't able to get the concept out as readily, and then I struggled on my own to get it. So I did well enough to pass the quals, obviously, but I'm not comfortable with it. I'm not happy with it, and I always find myself trying to refresh and learn something new from that, because you know, I want to be a well-rounded physicist. Just quantum is not my thing. But I think Long Beach prepared me pretty decently going in. I just had to put a little bit more, a little bit more elbow grease to get through the graduate class hump, because everything's at a higher level, you know, so.
Oh, well, so when you say, did you say loose shift? Or is that one of the professors you had?
Lusick?
Oh, Lusick.
Professor Lusick.
So when you say you have professors that are like Professor Lusick, what is that exactly? What is a Professor Lusick like?
He's the kind of professor that will show you an idea, but then get distracted, or you can kind of tell he wants to do everything but teach you that. Like for him, it was like, let's talk about basketball. Let's talk about something else. They're very easily distracted. Granted, people would ask questions, you know, that were not on topic, and he answered them. But I feel like he had a very blasé attitude.
I see.
Okay. Like, yeah, it's whatever, you know, and I didn't like that. It wasn't conducive for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's hard to learn the material if you're not being taught the material in class, right? So, because you say you get distracted, so it's hard for him to be on topic. So, it makes sense.
Yeah, and Joe knows. Like, what was our final for quantum?
Yeah, we went out to a bar.
Yeah, that was our final.
That was your final exam?
Yeah, drinks and pizza.
Did everyone get an A, or they didn't drink enough to get an A?
Right, like get your beer or you fail.
Most people got an A, but I do think some people got B's. I have no idea how he evaluated that. But
it was weird.
Yeah, I mean, just to speak to that
also,
class.
It's not.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Please.
I was just going to say, just to speak to that class, I mean, thinking back, I honestly don't remember learning anything. Like, I don't think I learned. I feel like all I remember of that class is talking about the double slit experiment for an ungodly amount of time.
Yeah, like a month.
Yeah, and not learning, like, I remember learning it the most, pulling the smallest amount of information about, like, notation of, like, Dirac notation. That's it. Like, literally everything else is, like, blank. I was like, I must have been off in another world during class or something, because I feel like I literally got nothing out of it. So it's pretty bad. To me, he's
Yeah,
an example of like what's wrong with tenure, unfortunately. Um,
yeah, 100%. I agree.
he clearly kind of abused it, you know.
Yeah. Here at UML, we had a professor emeritus. So he's like retired, but still teaches. Like that man is a EMAG god. You know, he taught us EMAG, um, and you know, very effective, brilliant, can get the point across. You know, he's been doing it for a very long time. He cares. He's retired. Two completely different fields to that. You know, yeah, Dr. Egan, cool guy, but Lucic, you know, his thing was, I don't know. I just Juanito like will speak the world of him. He's the only person I think that will have a different opinion on him.
I mean,
That's all I can say.
with Juan, that's true of like everything. But uh, yeah, Adriel also loved him, right? So I mean,
Oh yeah, I forgot about him. Yeah, that's true.
but yeah, I mean, his whole thing was just like personal responsibility. I mean, he kind of made that clear from the beginning. He's like, if you want to learn it, kind of just do it yourself. Otherwise, you know,
Yeah,
I can't make you learn it. So like, whatever.
you know what? I get that philosophy, but man, if you would have tried, I would have tried to learn it. It was very hard to learn it on my own because I needed something like, you know, or else I just, you know, study on my own and print out my own degree and it'd be valid if that was the case. But no, I'm going to university because I want to learn from people who know their stuff.
I
You know,
mean,
so that's just my opinion.
the final sounded great. I would be totally for that kind of final, you know. But I agree. I would have liked to probably learn as well in the class. So if I were a
Yeah, so
professor,
that was.
I'd be
Mhm.
providing the information, but I'd also probably cut out the tests. So
Yeah, like there's just so many ways you could improve that class to at least have that entertaining part, but at the same time get some work done.
yeah,
I felt I didn't earn it. Like I can't have a final at a bar. I still went because it's a final, you know, and who's gonna give up pizza and beer? But I wasn't happy the whole time I was there. Contrary to the pictures that show me smiling, I wasn't happy. That was a fake smile.
wow, that's crazy. I thought you guys were joking, but like that, he actually said the final is scheduled at the bar.
Yeah. Oh
No
yeah.
questions. It's not
Nope.
like he even gave an oral examination or anything during.
Nope.
That's crazy.
I don't think we even had a regular exam in that class.
Oh,
There was.
Uh, we had to take home like a couple homeworks. I remember me and you working.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true.
So
But it was take home, and we were SPS like super late working on them.
yeah,
And I think everybody else was like, "Oh, what you guys get?" You know, screw you, man.
yeah,
We worked hard on these operator matrices.
yeah. So there
so
were like two assignments, right? But anyways,
Yeah.
I was just gonna ask, just talking about, because you talked about the difference, I guess, in classes and the professors,
Hmm.
and then I'm also wondering what was the difference, I guess, in the overall culture in each department, in Long Beach versus UML.
Okay. The culture. Well, I know Pickett wanted to establish a culture where, because he had to cater to two different types of student, the BS, those who are going to go on to graduate school, and then the BA, who are going to go into teaching, because Cal State Long Beach has a strong teaching program in the physics department. So I kind of felt that they were being pulled in two different ways to try to satisfy uh, those two groups, because Cal State Long Beach they want to have teachers in physics, and that's perfectly fine. You know, I'm not disparaging them. Like that is great. Um, you know, but here at UML, this is hard science. Like we're not talking about catering to people who are going to teach physics at non-college level. Here's like, well, we're all doing hard sciences, and we're all gonna continue on to all the upper division physics classes. So that focus is a little bit different, like in the terms of the culture. Like they want students to like get as much physics as possible from all levels and beyond. And one thing that I know that the department here has grown since I got here in 2016, they've hired over 30 faculty. They've established a computational physics, nuclear group. They pumped in a lot of money. So they want to expand, and they want to build that name recognition. And, Long Beach, they hired a few people. I mean, you worked with one of the newer professors at Cal State Long Beach, Joe, but there wasn't too many new professors. I do know that they wanted to build a material science emphasis at Cal State Long Beach, which is great. I feel like that makes sense. A lot of professors there have condensed matter, solid physics experience anyway, so that makes sense that they want to build a program that caters to solid state physics, condensed matter, etc. But they definitely want to cater also to pumping out teachers, secondary school and stuff like that. So that's the culture difference I noticed. Okay. Is that here hard, like strictly physics, over there.
Right. So had
50-50.
Oh, sorry. I was going to continue on the question. Maybe you're going to ask the same thing. I don't know. Maybe. But I guess I was going to ask, what do you think are like the side effects of that in terms of the experience for the student, maybe for you in both of those institutions? Like, did one feel more competitive, another more collaborative, or are they about the same? Do students feel welcoming? Do you think it's an environment where a large array of different types of people could succeed in the two universities, and like how would it compare? So in terms of also outreach for diversity and so on. Sorry, go ahead.
I think in this case, it's also dependent on the makeup of the students of the department. You could only be as motivated as the students, because they're gonna take it on and continue on, So, we have people that are at very well-respected schools. Joe's at Florida, Lizzie's in Notre Dame, Danny's in Northeastern. We got people that, so we had people who are students who were motivated, and they went on and doing their thing, which is great. That helps the department too, because they can say, oh, we have alumni who are now here, and here. I do know that Cal State Long Beach is building a alumni network. So I was contacted by Dr. Kwan not that long ago, my old advisor, about possibly updating them in the alumni network. And I said, yeah, I can do that a little bit down the line. I'm not done yet, but that's something that they want to. I feel like that effort of, hey, we're building the department, we're emphasizing new areas. Here are some old, previous students who have taken their physics degree and have applied it here, because one thing, if you want to advertise to incoming students, you want to talk about all the, positive places that your old students have gone to. Like, oh, we have many students who go to UCLA. It's possible, we have many students who go to these universities or out of state, and that makes the department look good. That brings in motivated students. It's like a positive feedback that feeds itself. So I think Long Beach it has a ways to go, but they're definitely building it, because I remember seeing hints of that my senior year afterwards. I knew that that's something that they want to build, is that they want to bring the department up. And I see that here at UML too. since I've been here as a grad student, just the vast amount of money, bringing in talent, building new areas. That this school was almost exclusively experimental. So they had almost no theoretical or computational groups, and now they have a quantum computing group, a condensed matter group, a astrophysics group. So they have different areas now to bring in, talent, students from otherwhere. So I see it in both departments. Here, I think they have a little bit more money to pump in, so they've expanded more rapidly, but I think Long Beach is on the way of doing that too, at least from the things that I saw my last semester there.
Okay.
But Joe stayed an extra year, so I don't know. Maybe he can fill in a little bit extra after that. Or say, you're a liar. Why would you lie?
No, but I did want to ask you a question about, like, how do you feel your graduate department values you as just like a human being, right? The reason I asked this, perhaps to give some context, maybe you haven't had this feeling, is my experience going from Long Beach to my grad program is Long Beach just felt like a more welcoming environment that Irene was getting at. My grad program, I have felt obstacles in terms of, I don't know what you want to call it. I hesitate to call it racism, but I feel obstacles in terms of coming in as a bridge student, and just the way professors and people in the physics department, the way they talk about people like me, seems inappropriate. It seems detrimental to my well-being at this institution. It makes me feel like I don't belong here, kind of thing.
Okay.
Not everyone's not going to have that experience, even the people in my program, right? But yeah, I just wanted to ask you, like, do you feel like you're respected at your institution? Do you feel like, for instance, maybe a good example, something like the quals, right? Is I don't know what UML's policy is towards the quals, but here you have 4 attempts, and then if you don't pass, you're kicked out, right? And I know that's standard practice, but that does seem to affect people in the bridge program, people from diverse backgrounds, and it seems like not explicitly racist, but like a pseudo way of like kicking out more diverse students. So
yeah,
not intentionally, at least, right? But it's just because they're not considering, a lot of the background of, diverse students coming in, and they maybe don't have the same preparation, and they may have confidence issues, and maybe they're not really aware of that aspect. So I guess I'm interested too to know your take on the two universities.
Let's see. I definitely felt Long Beach was welcoming. I mean, coming in, I felt like even just having the group, the SPS, so having a physics-oriented group is very, very useful for students, because that's your first social interaction with people that are just like you, that's not in the class. Because it can kind of be difficult to talk to someone in class like, hey, what you doing? How like, hey, leave me alone, I'm trying to study. Here it's like, nah, we're gonna talk, we're gonna shoot the shit, we're gonna, there's no pressure. So, and then, but here, so it's funny. So when I applied to grad school, I visited the schools. I got into University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and I got into UML. Both of those schools well, Knoxville had money to fly me down there and, pay for a car because I only stayed for a day. I wasn't going to stay longer than that. So they organized the whole thing. I went down there. Um, Knoxville, it's a beautiful campus, bright orange campus, massive. Peyton Manning went there. That's what they love to tell you. Like, yeah, Peyton Manning. He has a street named after him in the university, Manning Way. They're big on football, and then they take me to the physics department, right next to the football field. I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, oh, I think if I go here, I can watch the game from the roof. And then they're like, all right. My thing was like, all right, this is great. Where are the scientists? Show me around. So they take me around to the different labs, and then they're like, all right, here's the flagship building now, because they had just built a brand new facility for all their material scientists, condensed matter, solid state people just outside campus, like a short drive outside. So this big old facility. All right, we're gonna take you there, and we're gonna have you tour and talk to all the people there. Because at the time when I applied, I chose condensed matter on the little thing. So they're like, oh, you must be interested in that. And I go to the facility and they're like, yeah, this is brand new. We have all this coming down. And so I got taken out with the students, and I was like, all right, give me the lowdown. Who's here who just finished their first year? Who's been here the long run? Tell me what you guys think. And they're like, this place is cool. There was one guy who came from Long Beach. He was there. So I was like, oh my God, you're one person I can relate to. And he was Latino too. So I was like, all right, you give me the lowdown. You're Latino in the South. How is it? What's going on? Tell me everything. He was like, you know what? You get used to country music. If you don't like it, you'll get used to it. That's fine. He had been there a year, and he enjoyed it. He's like, you know what? I like it. I like, it's different for sure, but he hadn't had a negative experience to share with me. So I thought, that's cool. I can survive in that place. Plus, if I went there, at least I have one person who I have a lot in common. So that would be a really easy transition. Just like hover around this person. And then I asked other people, I was like, all right, what's the physics department like? What's the quals like? What's the courses? What's expected of you as a student? One thing that kind of scared me off, and I thought like, oh, that might set me up for failure, is that because Knoxville is huge. It's a huge school, top 50. They're cutthroat. So they'll bring in a large number of first year grad students, like 30, 35 incoming, and then put them through the meat grinder, which is the quals, and then spit out 10 or something, a handful. And that's common. Like you get 2 tries. You get 2 tries, but they're like, yeah, everyone goes through the meat grinder, and they're actively trying to whittle down. And I wasn't too keen on that. I'm like, man, that seems like a lot of pressure. I feel like I want them to be there for me along the way, not trying to, chop me down and spit me out and like, all right, you got a year out of us, let's go. Here at UML, a much smaller school, I felt like it was more conducive to developing their students. So their incoming class is 9 students. And they're like, we don't want people to flunk out. We don't want to kick people out in the quals. They're like, if you like, yeah, you have to be honest with yourself. If you feel that you're not strong in some area, take, an upper division physics class. Take a year if you have to. They're like, don't rush. And I love that part. I was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to do that. I'm going to take remedial quantum, remedial as in the upper division course, and EMAG because I wanted a more rigorous EMAG background. So my first year, I was able to take EMAG and quantum to kind of prep me for the real graduate course and then the real qualifier after, because our quals were at the end of our first year, and it would cover upper division physics classes. So there wasn't going to be any advanced quantum field theory and none of that. So I was able to take those classes and still feel that I can pass the qualifier at the end of my first year. And I really felt like they didn't want to lose a student along the way. They're like, you're an investment. We want you here. Let's see if we can get you through this so that you get your degree and walk. That was the biggest difference that I felt from Knoxville, University of Knoxville, and UMass Lowell. Smaller department, but they want to retain their students. Knoxville, enormous department, could only keep so many, so they have to put them through the meat grinder. And I felt like I was going to be more successful in a place that didn't want me gone to make room because they don't have enough people to support. I didn't feel like that was good for me. So I feel like this department does a pretty good job trying to keep their students.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's something. I mean, it's very interesting that you say that too, and it's good to see the side-by-side comparison of the two. So do you think that is an outcome of being, I guess, a more popular school or more selective because they're more popular? Do you think that always has to be the case where the culture is always going to kind of be that way for the top, let's say, 50 physics programs? Or do you think it's like that in all the other top 50s, or do you think that there is a culture change and there can be a culture difference? Maybe,
I,
yeah, go ahead.
mm, I do know that the physics department are kind of built to support the engineering department, right? The larger the engineering student body, the larger the physics department has to be, because you need more labs, more TAs, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So universities that have very large engineering student bodies are going to have very large physics departments. And I think that then entails kind of like a meat grinder effect, because you only need so many TAs for the first 2 years, I think, or for the general ed classes. After that, like, no, we need, graduate students now to do their research assistants and do real physics work. So at least I know that is definitely the case in Knoxville. They have an enormous engineering student body, so that's why they have a huge physics department. And they need to fill that need for the first 2 years by having this large group of TAs, and then they whittle them down. That might be the case at other top 50s, but I would think, yeah, for someone to look into that, they'd have to look at how large is the engineering student body, and then that correlates with how large the physics department is. And I think at UCLA would probably be the same, because they have an enormous engineering body. So I think UCLA might have the same kind of deal. They need to have a filtering process, because you can't have 50 students going in, because there's only so many research positions available anyways.
Yeah. I mean, at least at our institution, a lot of even upper division graduate students still need to teach, because they don't have, I guess, enough research grants to cover all of the research students in the group, depending on what you're doing, right? Because obviously there's groups with more money than others. So a lot of them still end up having to be teaching assistants for those large classes. Is that the case at your institution?
There are, I mean, my roommate, one of them, he's a PhD candidate and he's still teaching, you know, but that's because of the group, you know.
Yeah.
Some groups have more funding available. Others do a 50-50 kind of deal, like we'll fund 50% of it and you have to work the other 50%. It's very group dependent for sure.
Yeah. I just wondered if you could even think of a solution to the whole needing, you know, kind of a lot of students at first and then trying to weed them out because of these large engineering departments. A solution where maybe the universities could just admit the necessary students and then dedicate the time and resources, like you said, that you experience in your program now, where you feel like they really accepted you to dedicate the time and not necessarily to see, are you good enough to stay, or do we just kind of sweep you out? So do you think there's a way that these larger institutions could support that kind of culture? And if so, how?
I think if there was a sort of like a collaboration between universities, I think would help. Like a physics degree should be equivalent across the United States, right? Doesn't matter where you know which school you should, like all physicists should know and cover pretty much the same stuff. So I think if that's the case is true, then a student who's taking classes at this university should be able to take classes at another university and then have that collaboration, so that if this person here, you know, can't get a position, like they should be able to do some sort of collaboration, because a lot of groups collaborate with other universities anyway. So why can't students kind of do that collaboration with other physics department? Or I think that, and then with COVID now, you can do everything online, so you don't have to physically be at that place. You can have it over the internet. I think that could facilitate that, or just hire more faculty so that there's more research positions open to facilitate the larger incoming graduate group.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Put
good.
some of those funds to getting professors in there.
Yeah, that's an interesting, I mean, they're all good, I think, things to look into. And I ask you this because that's a problem that I see, and I want to find solutions, you know, see ways that we could do things better.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. I mean, so there is a golden ratio, right, between your engineering department and number of faculty, right, in the physics department. Maybe someone should think about what that is, right? But anyway, what were you saying?
You know, another thing could be limit the number of engineering students. You know, if that's the case, that the larger the engineering, because the engineering department, it's going to bring in money to the university. That's good for the university. There's going to be a lot of pile of money. Invest that into the physics department. More of these students, you know, don't put them through the meat grinder.
Yeah.
But it's difficult because once you get to a certain size, like I guess it kind of gets out of hand, maybe, if not treated carefully.
Yeah. So I mean, I kind of just want to take this question because, I mean, yeah, the answers you give are practical and probably more useful, but for me, it just seems like unethical, right? That's the problem, right? I would urge departments and people to be ethical, right? Because if the issue is, as I understand it, you know, and it's an interesting point that you bring up. I've never thought about it, but yeah, I mean, engineers need to know physics, right? And so there is this kind of symbiotic or maybe parasitic relationship between physics and engineering.
Yeah.
And if they something like a University of Knoxville, or I hear the same practices at MIT, um, they need a certain number of TAs, right? And then they just all the ones that don't pass the quals, just okay, you served your purpose, now get out. Um, I
That's
mean,
why they give you the 4 tries, right? For the first
right,
3 years.
right. So it just seems like to me, then the problem is just the economic incentives, right? Is because if you bring
Yeah.
in a bunch of graduate students, you can afford to pay them, pennies on the dollar, right?
Yeah.
Rather than a full-fledged like faculty member, or like just actually, securing that graduate student's position for the whole time, whatever,
Yep.
right? It's the cheapest solution, right? And to
Yeah.
me, it seems like an unsustainable one, right? Like if I don't know, it seems like because it's an apparently unethical practice, once people, you know, catch whiff of the shit that's going on, they'll just be like,
Mhm.
okay, well, fuck that, and like you're an example of that, right? Like, once you catch whiff of like, oh, this is how they treat their students, you're not going to want to go there, right? And
Yeah. Yeah. So that's exactly, I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that to myself. I'm not going to add that extra pressure of, competing for a few precious slots, that's not, I'm just trying to do the best I can with what I can and not have to worry about my position. I just want to be able to improve and improve and improve, so I chose a school that was in the top 500 across, it's up there, it's not ranked, but I felt that there was enough talking to the like what because I got a tour and I talked to the department chair, talked to the graduate coordinator, I talked to the people like they really made it seem like they had a plan. Like we're pumping in millions of dollars to get a lot of talent and build areas and bring students because they want to climb the ranks. And I was like, I wanted to be a part of that because I know that they're going to take care of what they have now. They don't want to lose, they want to gain. So I felt like that's a better environment for me. So I chose a more lowly school, but I knew that the potential was, the ceiling is higher than a super high rank already established. They're set in their ways and, you know, grass is going to be damned kind of deal. I wanted something a little bit more nurturing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like if the, top whatever 50 schools don't get it together, then I feel like the other schools who are, having, in my opinion, this is a better environment because you get more diversity just in general, right? Because they're
Mm-hmm.
supporting a wide variety of types of people. Um, and so I feel like that's only that diversity in the future is what we need, right? In terms of coming up with new innovations. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that you're already seeing, like you said, they're hiring a lot. They're starting to hire faculty. They're trying to increase their program, and I feel like those programs could one day, become very strong and maybe overtake some other programs because they're set in their ways.
One thing that I remember reading was that your degree isn't worth like the real worth of your degree isn't when you get it, it's 10 years down the line because of the reputation of the school. And I thought of that like, oh, what's my degree, my PhD gonna be worth 10 years from now? And I thought it was gonna be I thought it's gonna only increase in value because the school's recognition is
Yes,
going higher, you know. So that was
exactly.
I'm kind of took a chance. Like I'm gonna bet on this school, this program, their vision that 10, 20 years down the line, they're gonna be like, oh damn, you went to UMass Lowell. Wow, they're really good, and they're gonna like look at that with a little bit more esteem. Not that it isn't now, like it's a very new school in the UMass system. I think it's the newest one of the bunch. Um, but they are definitely on the up and up, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to catch the riding wave going up.
Well, I mean, you're also, you're part of that wave, right? You're an integral part in creating that wave too, by being there and by,
I'm the foam. I'm the
giving
foam at the
yourself,
wave.
right? Exactly. So, I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like if you keep being active and obviously with the passion that you show us here, I can only imagine that you're going to do good things for the school, right? In the name of the school. So I mean, those are the types of people that, you know, should be valued, right? Um, People who are different than what the norm is right now. So,
Mm.
um,
I
but
was happy when I got here because I was the first person from California to apply to UMass Lowell. They're like, "What are you doing here, man? Why did you?" That's literally the very first thing that came out of their mouth when they're like, "Oh, where are you from?" "Oh, California." What are you doing here, man? How dare you leave that state, that golden state that's held on top of a pedestal? Like, are you mad? Are you mad? I was like, no, man, I'm good. I want to explore. I want to be out. I want to see America, you know.
yeah,
And
well, you're sending them good Cali
it's fun.
vibes. So,
Yeah, it's so funny. Like the first thing everyone says, like, why? They can't comprehend that. Like, it's hot. It sucks. I hate it. I don't. And
well,
I
do you like
mean,
the
and here
snow?
we have. I love the snow. What are you talking
Me
about?
too.
That's the best thing ever. I'm still in awe every time the first snow, how quiet it is at night. I love it. And then I like the whole scenery change. Like it's good. I like the seasons. And I like fall. I like the cold. I definitely enjoy the cold. I'm more of a polar bear than an iguana or whatever heat-seeking animal there is.
Yeah, me too.
I like the cold. You do better with it. I'm not as miserable than it is if it's mildly hot above 70. I'm miserable already.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
but it was an interesting thing. Like there's also a reason why I even chose UMass Lowell of all the schools to choose at the East Coast. You know why UMass Lowell? And it's because of SPS. I can thank SPS for that. We had a thick book. Remember that where all the programs. Yeah. So one day I just sat down and I was flipping through it and I was going through all the because they had the programs divided up by regions, like
Well,
Pacific Northwest, the Southern region, and stuff like that. So I thought, okay, I'm going to look at West Coast and East Coast and one school in the South. Like that was pretty much it. I was searching through, and I got to the classic Ivy League schools. And I was like, I'm not good enough for that. I went to a bunch of other schools here, and I I remember looking at UMass Lowell, and I was like, oh, all right, let's see what this is about. The UMass system. I was like Amherst, Boston. Like I looked through all the the UMass schools in that book. When I got to uh, UMass Lowell, is like I looked at their physics and applied physics program, and I thought the applied physics. I'm like, oh, I like the sound of that. Applied physics and applied physics. Like that title just it jumped out at me, and I see their flagship lab is the lab that I'm in. STL. That's the biggest money grabber. They bring in the most money. They're the first lab highlighted in that book. They're like, oh, we do radar, terahertz, military, all that good stuff. And I thought, damn, that's pretty cool. I want to learn about radar. I don't know anything about that. That seems interesting. So I was like, I'm gonna apply to that school. And I felt pretty confident in getting in because like it wasn't ranked, and they didn't have any like it just said, oh, there was no minimum GRE score. It just said just take it. As long as you take it, you're fine. There was no minimum physics GRE score, and my GPA was pretty good at this point, so I felt pretty confident that I'd get a yes from them. And I knew like if I get into that school, I'm gonna apply to that lab. That's where I want to be. So fast forward, I'm here, and we had to take a graduate physics seminar where all the new incoming students sit down, and once a week a professor comes in and they're the highlight, right? They're like, here's my research. I need a student or two, you know. So then in October, this was in October, my advisor, Dr. Guy D. Martinez, came in to the seminar and started talking about STL. They're like, yeah, STL, we do models and simulation. We use radar, and he's like, we look at our capabilities. Like, if you're interested in creating models, we have a model shop in house, and they showed off the models, scale tanks, scale vehicles, like really cool. Like they look like really fancy toys is what they look like to me. We also do electromagnetic modeling. So like, yeah, if you want to do computational stuff, we do 3D, you know, EMAG, XPatch, and all this other stuff. Like we model radar reflections of complex shapes. And then like, oh, if you want to do material science, we have a whole material science department. We use microwaves, terahertz. We characterize materials. We find the dielectric constants of a bunch of stuff. Like whatever you're interested in, we got it. We have it in house. And I was like, damn, that's so cool. So I like took his card. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna email you. And this was in October. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna email you. So I emailed him. I'm like, hey, you know, first year grad student, whatever. Nothing. I didn't hear any reply back. That was in October. And I was like, all right, he's a busy guy. That's fine. I'm not gonna think about it. But the graduate coordinator at the time kept telling us that we had until spring semester to try to secure a group to work with for the summer as a internship kind of say. Like, doesn't mean you have to commit your whole PhD to them, but you know, this is where you're sampling the different groups and see if which one's the right fit. So then April comes around, and almost everybody else already has a group that they've contacted and they set up something, and I haven't had anything yet. And this other guy, Evan, I remember him. He asked me like, "Hey, do you have a group now?" I'm like, "I don't have anybody. I'm only interested in one," and they haven't replied back. He's like, "Which one?" I'm like, STL. He's like, "Me too." And I was like, "No, you're not gonna get that spot. I want it." He's like, "Yeah, I emailed the guy, but he never got me back." So immediately after I was done talking to him, I was like, all right, let me email him back. And I was like, hey, I'll follow up. I emailed you back in October, this and that. And then he emailed me back. He's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. You know, it's a very busy time. He's like, when can you meet? And I'm like, right now. He's like, no, let's meet tomorrow. All right, fine. So I go over there. We have the interview, and they're like, so where you're from? California. What are you doing here? Why did you, you know?
Yeah.
And I told them that here's the thing. I think this is what got me into the lab. So they asked me like, wow, you're from California. What are you doing at UMass Lowell? And I told them exactly what I told you. Like I was sitting in this, you know, at the SPS room. I had this book and I was looking through and I found you guys' info and I was like, I want to go here and I want to work here. And they're like, and they looked at each other like, wow, we made it to a book in California. And they're like, cool. And I was like, yeah, man, I'm putting all my eggs in the basket here. I didn't tell them that, but that's kind of like what I'm feeling. So they're like, all right, tell me some skills that you have. Have you ever built anything? And I was like, are you good with your hands? I was like, yeah, I'm good with a hammer. I'm good with, you know, make some Legos and stuff like that. They're like, no. Have you ever done any like a school project where you had to build something, you know, like an engineering design, something? I was like, no, I haven't done that. They're like, have you done any programming? Are you good with MATLAB, LabVIEW? You know, I started HFSS, XPath, like started naming a bunch of stuff. I'm like, nope, never touched a computer and that, and you know, other than the Word doc. And they're like, all right. I was like, oh, I'm blowing it. This is worse. This is the worst thing ever. You know, I'm useless as a student because, you know, I don't have these things that I think that a competent physics student should have at that point. So like, all right, well, keep in contact. I'm like, that's code for laters, man. You know. So then, I leave, but then somehow they got me back. And I was super happy. And then they're like, all right, my advisor's like, all right, so we're gonna use this summer to get you up to date. Because I didn't know anything about radar. I didn't know anything about signal processing. I didn't know how to use MATLAB. Like, I was like a newborn, I didn't know anything. So my summer project was learn how to use MATLAB, learn some signal processing. He would give me exercises, like basic stuff, like, all right, plot this, plot a sine wave, take a derivative, find the frequency, take a Fourier transform, like baby steps, building that, getting me comfortable with the terminology. He let me borrow this micro Doppler book. He's like, learn some radar, if you have questions, let me know. Really, really just super helpful. Like, all right, this is summer is a perfect time to build a skill. Like, we're gonna build a skill. We're gonna make you comfortable, programming and computing and get you familiar with radar and signal processing. So the fact that it was no pressure and like, right, just learn and well, we're gonna, get you through this. I thought that was really great, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do so much. I'm gonna make you guys so proud. I'm gonna learn everything. So I put in a lot of effort and a lot of time to like really get myself useful for the spring, starting of the fall semester. So in the end, I was able to, I made a little GUI on MATLAB where you would input an option where you want 2 or 3 blades on a helicopter rotor, and then you would get the radar return back, and then you do your short-term Fourier transform, and you get the micro Doppler, and you can change it, like you can update it and loop it, and that was my summer project, was making a GUI to analyze a simulation of a radar return of a helicopter blade.
Wow, that's really cool. I don't know how to do any of that, so you're way ahead of me, but your story is definitely inspiring for me, because I'm feeling like nervous about my current research situation. I just joined the group basically at the end of the spring semester, so the summer was the first time. And I don't feel like...
And what a group...
It is
what does this group do?
Yeah, it's high energy theory, and we do precision work on precision calculations at the LHC, so calculating scattering amplitudes for different processes, but at higher loop order. And there's a lot of mathematics that I've never really studied or known because I never took like any formal math classes. In my undergrad, I got a BA in physics, so I don't even have like that much, I guess, technical background. So coming into this group, it's like I've known that I've always wanted to do particle theory, but it's like I don't think I really have the skills to do that. Or sometimes I think I don't have the abilities to do that, but I don't know. I guess hearing you talk is kind of like inspiring for me to say, I just need to kind of like put myself into it and push myself and just tell myself, just immerse yourself because you enjoy it. Just let yourself enjoy it and don't think so much about whether I'm going to be able to do it or worry about the outcomes, I guess, my performance, right? I mean, so how do you deal with that? I mean, do you have those feelings of like performance anxiety? And how do you kind of remove yourself from that so that you can just kind of delve into the physics?
Oh yeah, definitely. 100%. I was probably the most stressful day I've ever had was the quals. Like it wasn't like it was over the course of 2 weeks. We had the written. Remember, It was the week before school started. The first one was mechanics. It was on a Monday. And then Wednesday was EMAG. And then the following Tuesday was quantum. So that summer, that first summer where I was learning how to be competent on a computer, MATLAB and all that good stuff, I was also reviewing for the quals. And what I did was I did overkill. I downloaded maybe 10 PDFs, and these PDFs were a collection of questions from qualifiers across the United States. So it's 3,000 questions covering all the topics. And that's what I did for 8 hours a day. It was just problems after problem after problem.
Oh my gosh.
From qualifiers from across. These are from university across, from MIT, Harvard, Yale, UCLA, Berkeley. Like, someone just took those questions and made a PDF, and they had solutions with them too. So I would do the problems and see how different, like where my lack of knowledge, where if I wasn't detailed enough, or I got something wrong, and then I would brush up on that and try to patch the holes that I had. So that's how I spent my summer, was doing an ridiculous amount of questions to prepare for the calls.
Well, if you did 8 hours a day for the whole summer.
Yeah, because even at work, when I was programming, doing something, I was multitasking. I'd do a problem, I'd do a line of code, run it. All right, if this isn't working, let me go back to doing a problem. And so I was multitasking, trying to get two things done, and then at home try to do as much as I can before I got burnt out. Probably not as super efficient. Maybe I could have just, but for me, I learned more by doing than just reading and abstracting theories and stuff. Like no, I need to put pencil to paper and start doing, So that helped me out. It's probably not the best for everybody else, but that leading up to that was super stressful, and that's where my imposter syndrome was coming up. I was like, oh man, I don't know if I can get through. Like, how am I supposed to, have all these theories and theorems and concepts in my mind, But then I something that kind of eased my mind is like, wait, you were a tutor for 3 years, I never had any notes or textbooks when I tutored. People would just give me a problem and I just look at it. All right, this is what we do. It was like instant. I almost forgot that I can do that. Like, no, I've done this before. I have a pretty decent working knowledge. It's gonna be fine. So I just kind of had to remind myself that, like, you're a tutor, dummy. You're fine. You're gonna be fine. You just do what you're doing. But I was still nervous because I didn't know what to expect. Am I gonna get a radiation problem with you have an accelerating electron? What's the Lamore frequency of this thing? Or is it gonna be, you have two charged plates, what's the capacitance? You could have all wide range. I didn't know what to expect, so I'm just trying to prepare for all the cases. Then I get to the quals, and I thought they were pretty straightforward. My mechanics one was a spring. Like, oh, you have a spring that's free on both ends. If you stretch it, what's the total length? Like, that's stupid easy. Like, this is not even a physics problem, really. It's, or what's the kinetic energy of a particle that's orbiting, a planet? What's gravitational potential energy? Ours was 5 multiple choice, 3 filled out, like worked out problems.
Okay.
So the multiple choice was pretty straightforward. You have to be, because you don't want to spend time doing a complex, problem and then choosing an answer. So those are pretty straightforward. The written ones were a little bit more difficult, but still straightforward. Like, oh, you have a person without a parachute falling through the atmosphere, what's the terminal velocity? Set up the differential equation and find the v sub t, and in the limiting case as time goes to infinity. Pretty basic if you took a differential equation class or even the classical mechanics. Or set up the Lagrangian and find the equations of motion of a block that's sliding on a floor. I was like, this is good. I prepared. I'm good for this part. Then EMAG comes and knocking them out. So when I got to the point where I kind of calm myself, I was like, all right, this isn't bad. There's no surprises. And even if a problem was hard and I didn't get the right answer, I can think through it and I can, use my reasoning skills. So I felt that I was able to shine and, put my thoughts on paper and just get the most correct answer, I guess, is out of there. But where I was really nervous was the performance, was the oral exam part, because we had a written and the oral part. Mm-hmm. And this one was a month later. So first they didn't tell us who passed the written one until like the day before the oral one. So we're like, who's passing? Who's taking it? This like that unknown part was super stressful and I didn't like it. I messed with my digestion the whole fall semester that year. And then the oral part comes in and now I'm really freaking out because it's one thing to like write something down. The other one is like on the spot. All right, start spitting things out, So the performance part was definitely worrying me there. But then same thing, like once you're in the zone and you focus, that performance anxiety kind of goes away. At least it did for me. Once the door's shut and they're like, all right, let's get started. Completely different mood. It's like attack mode. We're gonna, whatever you throw at me, I'm gonna throw it back at you 2 times as hard. But there was one that kind of was always on the back of my mind, was quantum. I didn't know up to that point how I did on the written part in quantum. So I was worried, like I didn't know what to review because I didn't know how well or how bad I did. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna review everything all over again and make sure that I know everything. And then that fear came in again when it came down to the oral part of the qual. So like, quantum. All right, I hope I don't get this one. I'm not comfortable with this. I was just hoping that I get like a certain problem. 1D. Let's keep it one-dimensional, please. Nothing's interacting. Free particles. Oh, that's a blessing. I can do that. But luckily, what I found out was with the oral part is that they're not there to stump you. They're not, and they didn't leave me floundering. So with the quantum part, I did kind of like had to think a little bit, but the examiners were gracious enough to give me probing questions so that I can give oh, that's right. All right. I'm good now. We're gonna go this and this. They were giving me probing questions, and I find out that that's the thing that they want to do, is that they just want to probe your knowledge and kind of give you like some wiggle room so that if you're not instantly spouting off all of the degenerate states of hydrogen right off the bat, you can at least start off the basics. All right, what's the energy levels and what does it mean to be degenerate? Like, so that you get your knowledge and then you're like, oh, okay, now I can take over from there. They're not trying to leave you floundering for 15 minutes staring at you, So that eased the performance anxiety there. And I really do believe that they're not out to get you. They're not trying to kick you out. Like, they're making it known, like, you're an investment. We put a lot of time and money into your education. We want to make sure that you get through it and that we get our investment. Their investment is the research that we do and then 10 years down the line is the work we do somewhere else, because then that reputation precedes us, right? Like, oh, this guy came from so and so, he's doing great work, that's a good school, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, it's twofold. They get research out of us, but we get recognition and esteem, and you know, all networking opportunities after that. So it's beneficial that the department works with the student and the student does their best, because that's it's a good union. It only helps both. It doesn't make sense to chop down, and you know, what if you lose? What if you didn't give that one student a chance and they turn out to be future Nobel laureate that could have been at your institution, but now another institution is reaping the benefits.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So,
yeah, I mean, it sounds like your university has then more kind of like a growth mindset. They're dedicating the time, believing that you guys can mature into, you know, very successful scientists or whatever you choose to do. And then the other universities seem to be more of a fixed mindset where, you know, they're the people that come in and they have the ability that they're looking for. And maybe the others, they don't see them as much as a great investment because maybe they don't really believe in the fact that you could kind of support them and they can flourish and grow into being a very successful scientist, you know. So
yeah,
I don't know. What do you think about that?
they kind of have the luxury of being picky and choosy, because like, oh, I have name and money, and you guys are like, now you have to earn that, and we have the right to bestow that on you if we deem you worthy, or cast you off as a piece of gristle, you know, and then someone else picks it up. Dogs, one man's gristle is another man's, you know, chewy bit, and
Yeah.
you know, but the fact is, it's still nutritious and there's still value.
Well, maybe it's some really valuable antique that someone thought was, you know, not worth anything, and then it's actually worth millions. So,
And that's why the Antique Roadshow is a great show, because you never know the treasures that someone has in their attic that they thought was
yeah.
garbage. It turns out to be a painting from Renoir or Monet, and it's like, oh my God, we had this and this $1 million. We're the painting that's stuck in the attic. Someone just has to dust it off and take us to the auction.
Yep.
All right. Well, I kind of wanted to. It's a little bit of a hard segue, but
You can do it.
you were bringing up something about your experience in college, about your parents, right? And I wanted to know, well, because like when you stopped going for your psychology and you switched to physics, and your parents were like, "What are you doing?" Right. Well, they're like, "Okay, fine. Well, at least you're going to school." Now it's been how many years? What are their feelings now that you're still in school and stuff like that?
Yeah. Okay. So there's definitely some doubts, I would say, kind of, because they're like, all right, fine. If you're gonna go back to school, why don't you go back to school that gives you the most amount of money in the short amount of time? Why not be an engineer? You don't need to go to grad school. So for them, that concept of grad school was completely foreign. Is to them is like, no, you go to school for a short time, you get your degree, and then you join the workforce and you make money. Why did you need to go to grad school? What is this? They just want to take more money from you, you know? And I told them, no, this will be paid. They're paying me. I'm not paying, no, they're paying me. And they're like, how much are they going to pay you? Like, that doesn't matter. What matters is that, you know, I'm going to work towards something that I want. I'm going to be supported financially, not lucratively. I told them, I'm not going to live like a king, but I'm not going to be a pauper either. But most importantly, I'm going to follow my dream. I'm going to want something it's going to be, you know, for me. So every year I would get the same ribbing from my dad. He's like, so how much are you gonna make when you're done, huh, Mr. College Man? Are you gonna make 100,000? Are you gonna make 200,000? What are we talking about? Like, what's the range we're talking about here? And I'm like, you know what? Let's not talk money. Let's just say that I'm doing well and I'm gonna, I'm gonna get it done. And I'm like, all right. That was in the beginning. But then as time went on and they saw that, it was different. Like I had a different attitude towards school. I had a different vibe. I was like, they can tell I wasn't very into school or what I was doing, because I would avoid questions like, oh, so what are you gonna do with psychology? I'm like, don't bother me. I was avoiding it, and I wasn't passionate, and I was like, it just wasn't feeling it. But now if I like go with my cousins, and they're talking to me like, oh, what are you doing in school? Like, then I can go on and on about the future possibilities, things that I'm learning. And I did have one solace, is that my cousin, she was dating an engineer. So we hit it off right away. So every time I went to family gatherings, he his name is Kyle. He's like, oh, so where's Edward? When is he coming? Is he coming? Where is he? And then I'd be like, oh, is Kyle there? Is he there? Like, it saved me a seat, So as soon as we got there, like, we were inseparable. We were just talking, like, just shooting the shit. And so that was cool. That really helped. Like, I had an outlet. And then one thing that was also interesting, I felt like the vibe with my siblings changed too, and my parents, once they saw that I wasn't chasing like a pipe dream, and I was super serious about this, and I was putting a lot of time and effort, because my brother started reading more science fiction. He started like asking me physics questions, like random stuff. He's like, one day, like, he's like, oh, so how do black holes form? And I'll tell him, like, oh, you have a star that's large enough, and it dies, and the core, give him the whole thing. And he's like, oh, it's cool, it's cool, it's cool. And those times he's like, oh, I'm reading this book, and they mentioned this. They're like, is that possible? Is that science fiction? I'm like, it's science fiction, but here's the principle. So I saw that he became more interested in that. And then the youngest brother, he started becoming interested in like science and computing. So he started off the bat, like actually doing the science part. And I'm like, dude, good, that's good. You're not fucking around like I did. You're doing it right. So I remember giving him a lot of advice. I was like making a schedule, trying to tell him like what to take in what order, so that he's not wasting his time and he's doing what he needs to do. Excuse me. And then my sister, she started like getting more interested in just random like science stuff. Like now she's the one who will update me on SpaceX launches. She's like, oh, this SpaceX launch. I'm like, dude, I don't even know. Thanks, So I feel like they kind of incorporated a little bit more of that, so that they can like relate to me a little bit more. Also, the fact that I'm not home, and I'm pretty sure they miss me a little bit, so they have something to kind of engage with me when I do go back, or just talk to them on the phone or whatever. Because we didn't have a lot in common, but that's something that now I see that developing. And then my dad, like, I know for a fact that when I graduated Castle Long Beach, I guess it didn't hit them until I told them like where I got accepted. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna move away. And they're like, no, you're not. You're gonna stay. You're gonna find a nice school that's close by. You're gonna commute. Like, you can't live on your own. You've never done laundry. You've never cooked a meal for yourself. How are you gonna live? How are you gonna survive? They were dramatizing this, that I was gonna wither away and just desiccate outside of their home. I was like, no, cut the cord, So I told him, like, no, I'm moving away. I'm going to Massachusetts. I'm gonna go there. And they're not happy, but they're like, all right, Mr. Big Man, go, you can do it. So the first like semester, like, my mom was like, what did you eat? What did you make? Don't lie. Don't lie to me. What did you eat? Like, are you eating cereal? Are you actually making something? Are you buying food out, whatever? And I'm like, nope, I made chicken, I made rice, I made beans. And she's like, how did you learn that? You've never made it here. Like, it's something called the internet, Google, YouTube. I can follow simple directions. I told her, I'm pretty smart. I can figure it out. Making rice and beans is not complicated as you make it seem. I can get by. So then once I showed them that, I was doing pretty well for myself and that I wasn't like super skinny or super fast, but I was like perfectly fine. It was like, all right, we don't have to worry about that part. And then, I give them updates on school. Like, yeah, I'm doing fine. Even though that first semester I kind of lied, I almost flunked out that first semester because of quantum. I got a B minus, which is considered failing. The only thing that saved me was that my other classes were A's, so that my overall GPA was above 3.0, even though that one class was technically not passing, but that was perfectly fine. They're like, don't do it again. I'm like, I'll never do it again. And like, once I got that hurdle, once they got used to the fact that, like, you know what, yeah, he moved out, he's doing his thing. Like, now they're like super proud. So I remember my dad would say, like, yeah, I always talk about you. Like, yeah, you're doing your PhD and he's in Massachusetts, and they're super, super happy. And the talk of career kind of just was not as important now. They're like, oh yeah, just do well, finish your school, get your degree. Like, you're gonna get, like, they realize, yeah, he's gonna get a decent job. We just gotta make sure that he finishes what he needs to do. So their attitudes did change for sure. And then actually, what's today? So today is the 4-year anniversary of me leaving my house. So the 18th of August, 2016, at 4 a.m, I drove out and never looked back. So 4 years.
You visited,
4 years,
right?
Of course, I would go back. Winter break and summer break for sure. Yeah, but yeah. So I just realized today, 4 years marks when I set off on this journey that I am now sharing with you guys at this podcast.
Yeah, congratulations and thank you for sharing everything so far.
Yeah.
It means a lot, really. I mean, your story is great. I mean, I'm having a really great time just listening to you talk about your experiences, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, but I was gonna ask you a question because you were talking just before I went into my section where you're saying that that you joining your group and then you felt that the math was different because you didn't take a dedicated math class and you thought that maybe that would be a wall that you'd have to go through, obviously, because you have to understand the math and the notation to utilize the work, and then that you were kind of self-taught in some things. But I was going to ask you, and you also got a BA in the physics, right? So
Yeah.
you said that you're not as technically sound as someone who got a BS.
Mm-hmm.
When you were doing your BA, did you feel that you couldn't do it? Like, what was your attitude and your perception as you were completing your BA at your university?
So I guess my college experience, I had a lot of like psychiatric issues, I would say. So I had a lot of mental health problems during that period. So it's really difficult to really remember, I guess, my experience in terms of in school because I couldn't even dedicate that much that much time to school. So I definitely felt that's probably a reason why I still feel underprepared as well. Because I feel like I somehow got through the experience, but I don't remember the experience very well. Like, I don't remember really learning this material. So I know I learned it, right? I mean, I use it,
Yeah.
and it's there, but I don't remember really the experience because of that. So it's difficult to have confidence in myself when I don't even remember that I really was able to succeed in it, right? But I know that there's proof that I have, right? So I kind of try to look back and use that proof of success as something that tells me I can do it. Just keep going.
Yeah.
But I guess it's hard for me to kind of push through that, all the anxieties I have about not actually being able to do it, not being at the level that I need to not be kicked out, right? But I do think I have confidence in myself that I can reach that. I mean, that I can gain the necessary skills and that I could succeed in what I'm interested in, because even if I don't think I could ever stop myself from pursuing that, because it's something I'm so interested in that even if I don't think I can do it, I'm never going to stop trying, right? So although it's a lot of the times it's a anxiety inducing kind of experience going through, at least where I am right now in terms of the physics program, I think that there's just an impulse I have that is never going to let me stop, right? So
Yeah.
it's
And
worth it. I'm growing a lot, right? I'm learning how to push through those barriers. I'm learning about myself. I'm creating good study habits, good routine, things that I didn't have before. So it's 100% worth it for me, right? I'm gaining very helpful skills for the future.
yeah. And the fact that you're right here doing this right now is proof that you should be where you are. You know, you couldn't have it any other way, really. But just the point that I kind of want to say there is that look at where you are right now. You have the capabilities. You are more than capable. And the great thing is that you have the abilities to learn something that you didn't know. If you're lacking a certain area, you have the capability and intelligence to pick that up. The math part, you can learn that. The theory, you can learn the theory and then you could apply it. The fact that you made it this far to grad school and you're here and you have you're more than capable. It's fine if you're lacking something. We're all lacking something.
Yeah.
It's just, are you capable? Yes, you are, because you made it to this point. So you can pick up the slack and patch holes in your knowledge and gain new skills. Same with Joe. You more than capable of picking up your stuff. And I know that's something that I learned too, is that with being computationally more, comprehensive and learning a lot of engineering, like I had to learn a lot of engineering to go hand in hand with the physics to be able to apply the radar and the tools needed to just work with that instrument. You have to process the information, the signals. So that's a whole field in engineering right there, signal processing, that I had to become proficient in so that I can pull out valuable information that I needed. Luckily the physics part is, all right, we have a plane wave that's interacting with its environment and it's electromagnetic in nature. So Maxwell's equations apply, boundary conditions. We know how this electromagnetic field is going to interact with the interface. And we know how the reflective wave is going to come back to us, and we can apply Doppler, if it's moving, and we can find more information. We can analyze the phase, and there's a lot of overarching knowledge, and I didn't know any of that, but I wanted to. And I think that's what you have, is that you want to. So that's going to separate someone who doesn't know anything, is that do they have the desire to put in that work or not? Because that's going to determine whether or not that knowledge and that skill is going to be acquired. I don't want to learn how to play the guitar. Someone else wants to learn how to play the guitar. If we both start off as novices, who's going to be the guitarist at the end? The person who wants to learn, So if you have the knowledge, if you have the desire and the will, you can move mountains. That's kind of what people do. Look at a lot of things in history is when there's will and desire, how good things can happen or bad things, as long as whatever you want. If you want something to happen, it's gonna happen. Hitler wanted something to happen, and he did horrible things, but he had the will and desire. Einstein, turned physics on his head because he had the will and desire to learn about light. So, yeah, that was weird too.
No, it was well said. It was good.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think yeah, I try to stick to that, definitely. And after this conversation, I'm sure it will kind of give me a little momentum to work on some research, what was I gonna say? No, I forget. But I guess Joe can say something now while I collect my thoughts.
Joe, what's your favorite memory of us?
I don't know if they're appropriate for podcasts. There's a few.
Pick the most appropriate one then, or edit it. You can talk and then edit it out. I don't know, whatever you want. Just
I don't
because,
know.
because I have one. I have a good memory.
Okay, well then you share it, and maybe it'll spark something. Maybe.
My good memory involves you, but also involves the guys. But you guys introduced me to board games, and I remember one time going to your house and playing board games, and I thought that was like the first time I went over to someone's house to play board games.
Mhm.
And I remember it was late at night, and it was like snacking, and I thought that was so cool. Like, yes, I finally made a group, made a friend group that, because like I had my other friend groups from like community college, but I didn't have like a really tight knit group of people that were doing the exact same thing that I did, and I remember I kind of looked up to you. I thought you were super cool and you had a lot of friends, because you and Alan and Juanito and Adriel. I was like, ugh, why do you guys have so many friends and I don't know anybody? I actually I wanted to just infiltrate your guys' friend group. That's why I was like I want to hang out with you guys. You guys seem like are always laughing and goofing off.
Well, maybe that's not the best for the physics, but
Hey,
but
that's
yeah,
fine. We made it here, so that's
yeah.
some goofing
But
off.
I mean, I didn't perceive it as an infiltration or anything like that. It just it's
You were infiltrated and penetrated into that group.
it seemed natural from my perspective, but I guess you did your job well then.
Well, okay, selfish reasons. I definitely used the SPS presidency as to my advantage to make as many friends as I could.
Yeah,
That's why I had so many events. I'm like, I'm gonna force you guys to hang out with me and do fun stuff. So it worked. Had some good times in that room.
yeah.
That
I
was
mean,
not academic at all. We had a projector. We would play video games in
yeah.
that room. Like that, Alan brought a projector and we play Super Smash Brothers, or we watch movies.
Yeah,
You know.
played so much Smash, right?
Yeah, and I was still a garbage player, no matter how much I played.
Yeah,
That was the worst part of.
I tried teaching you for a couple times, right?
Can't do it. I cannot do it, and that's perfectly fine. I've accepted that I'm a trash player at Smash.
It's because you don't want to do it.
Exactly. I do not have the will or the desire. I do not care that much. But no, I 100% am glad of my SPS experience, Cal State Long Beach. I don't think I would be where I'm at or doing what I'm doing if I had I feel like everything had to happen in its course so that I am exactly here. I had to come to the school. I had to join this lab. I had to make the connection. You know, one of my lab mates who has gone to a better place got a job at Lawrence Livermore National Lab. And because of that and our work experience, you know, she's like, hey, you'd be a good candidate for a job here when it opened up. So that's an opportunity. That's a networking opportunity there. You know, if not, my advisor spent 5 years at Raytheon. You know, I could have a connection at Raytheon. Like I really believe that being here will be the best crossroads that I can be for my life choice and career, because I knew I wanted to be my own person. That's why I had to move out and go to school out of the state. Kind of like force myself to be self-sufficient and kind of, you know, move out. That's the thing with Latino families. You only move out when you get married. And I'm like, I'm not gonna get married, but I'm moving out. So I chose school. I married physics and came over here, and you know, it was definitely hard, but like I miss my family. Yeah, I miss them. Miss my siblings, miss my friends. You know, that first year I was here, almost everybody was still at Long Beach. I graduated kind of early. I think Juanito, Adriel, and Alan were the ones who graduated with me. And then you, Lizzie, Cameron,
Jesus.
and the other Mexican guy. Oh my God, I can't remember his name.
Jesus.
Jesus. I can't believe I didn't remember the name Jesus. Yeah, him, like, you know, he's gonna hear it. It's gonna be so funny. But yeah, like you guys formed my nucleus. You know, nucleus. So, you know, I'm super happy of my journey, and I'm very excited to see where this takes me. Like, you know, if this opportunity, if I go through with it, I think would be a great stepping stone to get me further along my, you know, career. 100% still want to do my PhD here. So I want to learn as much as I can. I want to do as much as I can. And I've learned that I can also enjoy my time as much as I can too. I'm trying to strike a balance of personal, you know, enjoying my 20s and 30s. I didn't enjoy my 20s too much, but I'm trying to enjoy my 30s more. And also being a productive, active scientist, you know. Those are not mutually exclusive. They can help each other out.
Yeah, so tempted to branch off there, but I guess I want to check in with you guys. How you feeling on time and stuff? You guys want to keep chatting for a bit, or?
I mean, if you have more, I can do a little bit more.
Okay.
You know, I felt this conversation was good. You guys brought up a lot of good questions. It was nice. It's nice.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then, for the immediate question that comes up because of what you just said is why didn't you feel you enjoyed your 20s?
Oh, because I was not pursuing what I wanted to do. Because a lot of the early, like 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, those first 6 years, you know, I was doing psychology and I was not happy. I felt like I wanted to do something else. 24, that's when I really started, because that's when I went back to community college and like, all right, I'm going to do engineering and then turn to physics. But I wanted to do something that I wanted to do, like deep down. And so I had laser focus. You know, I for the first time in my life knew exactly what I needed to take, in what order, how many classes I needed to take, what steps I needed to take, research. Like I had all of that figured out. So that time flew by, and I was more than happy to spend a lot of late nights at IHOP at Norwalk, with my study group, getting, my physics down. And it's like, it just, I don't know, that time just melted away. But it wasn't wasted. And I still enjoyed that. Now I'm trying to enjoy it in a different way, because now it's like I made it, sort of say, I'm here. I accomplished that goal that I set out at 24 to pursue this and go into grad school. And now I'm 32 and I'm a PhD candidate and things are going pretty well. So like, me at 24 had the vision, but was scared that I wouldn't be able to complete it because I couldn't see that far into the future, But I was very determined, and I was not gonna let, anything stop me, or bad grade, I knew that D in general chem way long ago was like, at first it did deter me, but I was like, no, you know what? I wasn't ready. I was still dumb. I wasn't prepared for the hard work and the energy and the time it takes to succeed, because I wasn't ripe yet, to really do it. So when I came back around, then it was like, I felt like there was no obstacle I couldn't overcome, no concept I couldn't figure out, no math class I couldn't learn. I felt I can do it. And that's where the will and the desire comes in. And that's why I'm here where I'm at right now. But that will and desire took a lot of time to nurture and get down.
Yeah, for sure.
Could I have it at 18? Sure, why not?
Well, I mean, you're talking about your younger brother getting into science, and you're providing him the guidance that you didn't have, right, as a kid, right? So that's a valuable resource, and who knows, if you had that counseling, maybe things would have gone faster. But it's still, I'm sure you would say it's a valuable experience, right?
Yeah, of course. Like, I don't know, I just was not mature to take on the challenges, until I went through that 6 years of being miserable. That's what it took. I had to be miserable. I had to suffer. I had to languish, And but the thing is, it was a personal thing. There's plenty of people who go through psychology and are super satisfied and happy and are fulfilled doing that, and they want to help people. That's them. It was, for me, my personal enjoyment and benefit and fulfillment. It wasn't cutting it.
Yeah, and so you mentioned you had one class left for your psychology degree.
Yeah.
Is that still the case?
Yeah. So funny thing. So before I moved, I actually went back to UC Irvine. I went to their admissions office, and I'm like, yeah, so I'm a former student. I don't know. I told them I only have one class. Can I take it? What's the steps? Like, am I banished forever? I don't know how this works, So they're like, all right, what's your student ID? And I gave it to them, and they're like, oh, no, you're still in good standing. I was like, what? They're like, yeah, you pay pay $50 to get reinstated, and you can take the class. But the problem is, when I went, summer session was already full swing. So they're like, you can take your class in fall. And they're like, no, I can't do that because I'm moving. But, that doesn't go away. They're not going to purge me from their record books. I can go back and finish it at any point because I'm still in good academic standing. I just have to pay a fee to get reinstated and then take the class.
Thinking now might be the perfect time to
Yeah.
take that class given COVID, right?
Well, yes, I hope this disease continues on a little bit longer so that screw everyone else. No, I 100% intend to get my meaningless BA in psychology. Just to finish, just to tie the loose end, you know.
It's not meaningless. You never know how you could use it in the future, so you know.
That's true. That's true. I do know. So one thing that there was a conversation I had with a doctor. So I had a meeting back in March before COVID, because we were looking for uh, PhD funding past the master's. So I went to UMass in Worcester, so the medical school in Worcester, and we had a meeting with a doctor, and we brought up the whole because he was a neurosurgeon, so he was familiar with stroke, and so he's like, oh, that's the perfect person to ask for money, you know, money please.
Yeah.
So he gave him the whole spiel, like, all right, here's my research. We're using this radar, we're taking the data and the measurements. We're training a machine learning algorithm to distinguish a normal motion from a impaired motion caused by stroke. We can use this potentially in a therapeutic post-diagnosis type setting, you know? And he was like, yeah, that's great, but can you look inside the human skull? Like, we want to see inside the brain. So their immediate need was they wanted an imaging device in real time that can peer through tissue to look at the brain to see if there's like, you know, an aneurysm or something, like to find that or see the region so that it could be non-invasive. You know, you can have someone in a CT, CAT scan, PET, all these other imaging modes, but like we can see if we can use microwaves. So like that's possibly feasible, but that's not what
Yeah.
I'm about. So there was a little bit of difference in priorities there, but it was at least interesting to see what a need was for a medical doctor in that field, you know. So yeah, I can see uh you know, it's interesting if you look at the brain and how it works and the visual field, there's some very complicated physics going on there. You know, human vision, like even hearing, the cells, you know, you have a bunch of specialized cells and neurons that pick up frequencies, and you know, to model that, that's some complex physics in there. Vision too, on the occipital lobe and all the V1 through V5 forms to pick out the different lines. Like, it's interesting. That was something that I remember from my cognitive neuro back 10 years ago or something. It still sticks with me. Like, our vision is like there are certain cells that pick up only lines or diagonals, and then those, when you see a field of vision and you see lines, those cells light up, and that information is passed on to the next set that then looks at concentric circles or shades, and then that gets put into a different region that looks for global type, you know. So human vision is very complex, and there's some set, and it's interesting. So I can see how this, if someone's trying to model accurately the human visual system or the auditory system or mechanical like biophysics is a whole field of physics that deals with locomotion and how the body moves and the muscles and tendons. So yes, physics is 100% applicable into the human body. You know, I don't know if that can model something as abstract as behavior. You know, we have to do some really weird nonlinear equations somehow to, like, you know, it's like, I don't know, but maybe that could be a field,
Yeah.
psychophysics, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm interested in. I want to figure out a way to describe consciousness, something more concrete with mathematics, so, and obviously physics. So
Maybe
yeah, I
quantum
mean,
is the way to go.
yeah.
You treat your neurons as a superposition of different states, and they're all firing at once, and you sum them together and it gives you an idea. Psychophysics, brand new field that could be pioneered by you.
There probably is psychophysics already. Neurophysics. I think there's neurophysics, which is probably similar to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
What are your thoughts, Joe?
Oh no, I was just, I have no idea as to like how
make
you
it
would
stop, please.
how you would model consciousness with physics, but I was just gonna say, plug our next potential podcast. The one after this is, I'll probably put it in the intro of this podcast as well, but we're planning on starting a book club, right? And
okay.
And Irene's been reading this book called Conscious by Annika Harris. And so I'm going to read that book after her, and then we're going to talk about it and talk about consciousness and our thoughts on it. So that'll be coming up after this podcast, right? So, I mean...
Is it more from a philosophical point of view? Or...
I don't think so, but I read the book.
Ghost in the Machine type of deal.
Oh, the book?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I mean, there is a little philosophy in there, you know. I mean, I guess it's inherent, goes with the subject, but she does point to a lot of like studies, like in different areas of science that can back up different claims she makes about different aspects of consciousness and different problems that arise when you try to talk about consciousness. So it is really grounded in actual science, I would say. But it's, I guess the thing she brings up is kind of in the forefront of the exploration of consciousness in all these different fields. So I think that's something that the fields are looking in, all fields of science are really interested in going in the future. At least some people are interested in looking at different aspects of consciousness, and really even just philosophically, the questions are what exactly is, where's the cutoff? Like, when do you define what consciousness is? She goes through the hard problem of consciousness, which I don't want to go into all the details of all this.
Yeah, no spoilers.
We're gonna do the podcast, so then you'll hear all about these problems.
Yeah, I don't want you guys to spoil it while everyone else is like, oh, what's going on? And like, oh my God, they spoiled the whole book. But exactly. I was gonna say, without spoiling it, what would be the overarching message? But you said it's grounded in observations. So the proof, right? Like, this is like trying to give hard proof, which is great because sometimes faith isn't enough. Some people need, like, give me the science. Weigh a person before and after they die. How much does the soul weigh? I know they did that experiment because I've seen it, like excerpts of it. Like, supposedly the soul weighs like X amount of grams because they weighed a person before they died and right after. But who knows? That could just be that they exhaled and their breath in their lungs. So there's a lot of variables. A lot of variables. Gas escaping.
Exactly.
From both ends. But that's interesting. That's an interesting aspect that you don't see too much. But I think it's great. Like, there's some unexplained phenomenon that a lot of people assign supernatural or higher kind of explanation. Why not use science to get some? That's why I love ghost hunters, because they're using all sorts of fancy equipment to try to catch a ghost. I'm like, fuck it. I'll fund your expedition for a day if you can give me some proof. Go find
You work in radar, so maybe you can help come up with some good proof of ghosts.
Are ghosts reflective? If they're made of plasma, then yes. If they're ionized plasma energy beings, then yes, they would be. We would pick up a slight reflection somewhere, But that would be different, because if I put a radar in a room, and I look at the return, I'm gonna get something returned, right? Because we're gonna have flat surfaces, we're gonna have metallic objects. Who's to say what's a ghost if there was one, you know? So we would need like a multimodal type setup that will try to combine as much data from different instruments at once to build a more complete picture and try to differentiate.
Yeah. Then you can get all those supposed mediums and psychics to come in and tell them whether they see a ghost and what they see. That'd be interesting compared to the data, you know.
I mean, my dad watches that stuff. He would love that project. I mean, he just came up with $1 million idea right there, right? Like you can sell these machines to ghost hunters and anyone else who wants to.
You know what? I wouldn't feel good about it.
It could be a scam,
I wouldn't feel good about, you know, using. Yeah, I feel like a charlatan selling snake oil. Here's a radar guaranteed to find your dead grandma. There you go. You know, preloaded with responses like, "Are you there? I'm so cold. Why isn't anyone answering me?" You know, and make some money off the sure there'll be someone who'll buy something like that. But I wouldn't feel good about that. It'd be no bueno, man.
Well,
but I'm just saying, someone else, if they wanted to do an actual, legitimate experiment to find some observations, they can use a radar and prove or disprove that ghosts are not plasma. You know, it's weird because they have to have some sort of shape, right? They're an entity, so they have to be made of energy. And that energy should have an influence on the material world, right? Because you can't have nothing there. There has to be energy of some sort. So if they're made of energy and they're affecting their environment, that means they should affect the atmosphere. And if they're made of energy, that means there should be some ionization, which would be a plasma, so they should be reflective. At least that's my reasoning for proving ghosts, right? Then they would break the laws of physics most likely, because if they're, you know, contained energy, then they're probably violating conservation of energy somewhere, because that energy should be distributed out into the universe, you know, because that would be like breaking entropy, because you'd have more of a localized.
Right. It would take work to maintain that form.
Exactly.
Somehow they have to take in energy.
Yeah. So just using the laws of physics, it's probably not likely, but you know what? If someone wants to buy a miniature radar unit to conduct their own experiment, I'm more than happy with that. But I'm not going to say that this will prove that ghosts exist, you know, or something. But I'm just saying, your dad, I wouldn't have your dad go buy a radar unit. I wouldn't recommend that.
Right. And I'm just saying the money's on the table.
Please.
So.
Yeah, money's on the table. Yeah, but Senor Guzman, please, my friend, no, don't do it.
I don't think he'll buy one, but anyways, because like Ghost Hunters, is it Ghost Hunters or there's one other show for
Bigfoot Hunters?
Huh?
Bigfoot Hunters.
He watches that too.
No, I watched it too, man. And I was like, all right, how many episodes are you going to show of them hearing something off in the bush, chasing after it, and then there's nothing there?
Yeah, I know,
that's
it's
like,
crazy.
That's the entire season. Oh, I heard something. Let's go check it out. Oh, there's like some shit on the floor. Let's analyze it. Oh, it's a bear. Okay. Oh, I heard something. There's some fur on this branch. Let's analyze it. Bear. It turns out a lot of these fucking Bigfoot proofs are fucking bears, man. You know?
Yeah. I know, right? I've seen like way too many episodes just by being in proximity, and it's just like, okay, when did these people give up? Like,
yeah,
you've dedicated
how do you have
so
five
many
seasons? How do you have 5 seasons and not catch one thing? You know.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. If you use principles of biology, how are you going to have such a large mammal and no proof of a population? Like after all this time, like there couldn't just be one that lives like 10,000 years. No, there should be breeding population, if you're going to have this growing, and how, like, I'm sorry, but we have LiDAR, so they can measure, they can see through treetops with LiDAR, right? Because that's micron wavelengths, and they can see the differences in water content, because microwaves are affected by water. So if you shine microwaves, anything that has water will be reflective. So you can see through canopy, you can see through the floor, like, and they do that all the time. That's how the United States, measures the health of their forest by the foliage on the ground and using LiDAR and all that good stuff. Are you telling me after all this fucking time that they didn't find a nest of Sasquatches or whatever it is and the government's keeping it secret? They're like, no, there's a nest here. We just can't tell anybody because, no, I'm sorry, but as much, and I want a Sasquatch to be true as much as anybody else,
Well, if you want to come on the podcast again, we could maybe turn this into a thing, like just to shut my dad up, I guess. Joe from the future here. Dad, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I was just joking when I said this, and I said it with love in my heart, so hopefully you knew that, but just in case, I thought I ought to make it clear. But for everyone else, let's get back into the show.
You're like, Father, listen to this.
Do a detailed analysis of what you would expect would be necessary for a Sasquatch to exist, and go through a couple episodes and react or whatever.
Use some sound science to squash these beliefs.
Yeah, it sounds like your radar experience would be useful. Right? It sounds like
nothing can hide, man. You can't hide from it. You can see through walls too. Given the right frequency, you can see through walls. I can see you pooping through that room with your radar. The reflective water, and no, I'm just kidding. But
I leave my door open, so you don't need radar to do that.
No, you just normal visible light. You're like, oh God, no, blind me now. No, like, if radar is very useful, is a lot of industry, like it's permeating a lot of commercial avenues. First, it used to be purely military. We got to detect a large metallic object moving really fast at us, so that we can move out of the way or shoot it down. But now it's made its way into our civilian use. We have radar in cars. That's a huge development right now. That's what's pushing the most current radar technology, is that it's being used in automobiles for fancy self-driving cars, or just a parking assist or lane assist, and all these fancy luxury options. That's all driving the further technology and the miniaturization of commercially available radar units. So I kid you not, you're gonna have a radar in your phone that's gonna recognize gestures, and that's independent of lighting conditions, so you can operate your phone at night. You don't need a light. It doesn't need visible light to see you. You could have a little tiny radar chip on some corner, and we can do all sorts of fancy stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, in
scary,
telemedicine, that's a big. Well, I mean, if not to go too far into the. There's a. Do you guys ever watch King of the Hill? Is that you guys familiar with King of the Hill? You remember Dale? You know how Dale was a huge conspiracy theorist?
Yeah.
His thing was the beast. You're in the beast. Well, he wasn't that far off, when it comes to the type of monitoring that they can do, with the whole Edward Snowden popping that lid off, like, oh, yep, they're monitoring traffic, just looking for keywords, terrorist stuff, but still monitoring our communications. Well, in China, one of the things that they're really pushing, and it's kind of scary, is facial recognition. So they can pick out the Uyghurs, the Muslim community. So So we have facial recognition technology, which is huge, and that can be misused. Obviously, you have all sorts of devices now that can monitor, that can observe you, like radar, infrared. So that's like with technology, yes, there has to be ethical and conscious use of it. Like it can easily fall into unscrupulous hands to do bad things, and it's very easy. And unfortunately, sometimes physicists, we we make things like I was telling my girlfriend Juan at the time. I was telling her like the difference between an engineer and a physicist is that an engineer builds something with a design purpose, and a physicist builds something where he has an answer to a question that hasn't been asked yet. So we have this tool, and then someone else figures out down the line, like, oh my God, we can use it for all these different uses, you know? But we just build something and we use it to investigate, but it doesn't really have a set purpose. It's multi-purpose. An engineer will build one thing and like it does this for this purpose. So, you know, our adventures and our research that goes into our science sprouts many avenues that then fall its way into military and civilian use. It's just we have to be careful. We don't want to open Pandora's box and then it's misused and our civil liberties are trampled. It's very easy to do that in this digital age, and we got to be careful.
So do you think it should be something like your responsibility or your PI's responsibility to try to make that technology, to try to envision the possible outcomes to
Yes,
yeah.
like discuss it and because like for us, I know we're always exploring every single possible avenue because we're looking for funding. So we're kind of following the money, but in the end, you can always find a money trail. Is that worth your integrity and your peace of mind that can fall under a potential misuse? Like I could just imagine the scientists who worked on the atomic bomb. I'm sure they had the best intentions and this was furthering the science, nuclear science, but in the end of the day, they were making a weapon that was going to be used to take human lives. Like you have to make a conscious decision to continue, and you're going to be fine with whatever the outcome was, or be like, you know what, I'm not comfortable, and I'd rather do something purely altruistic. But the atom bomb wasn't all bad because we had a lot of great developments from their nuclear science. We can look inside us to find in real time, diseases, cancer, all that good stuff. So there's always silver lining, but I think your conscious and your integrity definitely go in hand in the type of research that you can go put yourself through. Could be a topic for another.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more
podcast.
things that I could say, that then kind of delve into politics. But then I'm like, it would take forever to have all the discussions that we could on every topic. So I don't know.
So
can I take a picture of this as a reminder, as a memory
yes.
of my time? And
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so it seems like it might be a good place to start wrapping up.
Yeah.
So before I, give closing remarks or whatever, is there anything you wanted to say, add, Ed or Irene?
Let me see. I wrote down some overall questions, so I think we kind of covered everything that I was thinking. But I always do like to ask, like, I guess, oh yeah, I mean, I guess you kind of touched upon it, but what do you see as I guess your goal at the end? Like, what are you interested in doing after you get the PhD?
So what is my goal? My goal, I want to be mentally challenged. Not, not I think not mentally. I was like, wait a minute, no,
We know what
mentally
Flip it.
stimulated.
Challenged mentally.
Yeah, I was like, mentally challenged. No, that came out completely wrong. I meant stimulated mentally. You know, I want to have a rewarding career where I'm presented with, you know, these interesting, difficult problems, and I'm working towards a solution. You know, to me, that is worth all of this, because I wouldn't feel like that is work, because I'd be so excited to like go to work and tackle these problems, you know. And for me, physics is like this huge Swiss Army knife. You have this massive tool set that you can apply to literally any type of problem. You know, that's like each field of physics sprouts its own engineering discipline, because people use those concepts to find solutions to problems. You know, um, we have this huge toolbox, and to me, that's exciting. Like what can I do? You know, I'm not limited. I think I'm limited by how much of a drive and motivated I am. But that's really the limiting factor of what I can about what I want to do. I feel like I have this huge toolbox, and I want to see where that takes me. So physics for me is that vehicle that takes me there. So for me, at the end of the day, 5, 10, 20 years down the line, I see myself going in to a work environment where I'm, you know, collaborating with my colleagues, and like and we're pushing the boundaries of knowledge. We're finding this new solution, and we're presenting that to, you know, to the scientific community. And however means I get there, that's perfectly fine. The journey is worth it, whether it's a master's or PhD. But at the end of the day, that's what I'm going to be doing.
That's great. Um,
I
yeah,
just gotta
like
remember that toolbox.
yeah, definitely, and you will. Um, yeah, so then obviously in the future at some point you're probably going to also be a mentor to some, other people who are also now going through their journey. Um,
Well, I
what
can
would
definitely
you
see that.
what would you say then is like what makes up the perfect mentor in your eyes? So like what would you if you were a mentor, what would you strive to be personality wise?
Mm. Well, I definitely think that I can be an effective mentor, because I think I can communicate my ideas pretty readily. And I feel like I have patience, and I'm kind of understanding. So I wouldn't be like, I would nurture that. Like, I try to figure out, like, all right, you know, what is it that you're trying to achieve? And like, even if it's completely different, like, it's not down the route of science, it's not like, it doesn't have to be physics. Like I think in the end, nurturing that will and the desire, I think, is what makes an effective mentor. Because I think with those two things, you can follow any path. It doesn't have to be science, it doesn't have to be physics. It can literally be applied to anything in in the world. Is that if you have will and desire, you can do that. So I think an effective mentor will try to build and nurture that. Find out what is it that motivates you, what is it that you want, and then, you know, do whatever you can in terms of support and like realistic expectations so that that will is then developed, and then they follow through and go with it. And at the same time, tell them, you know what, it's okay to change your mind. I went into psychology and I did a lot of years in it, and I changed my mind, and that's okay. You know, I don't see that as a failure. I don't see that as like I didn't fail. I didn't see that as a failure. You know, so I think a good mentor can be honest with that and say, you know what, it's okay if you change your mind down the line, however many years.
Yeah.
You know, as long as you take a chance on yourself and you have will and desire, you can do whatever you want. So that's what I would do as a mentor.
That's great. Yeah, we need more mentors like that for sure. You know, I wish every mentor could have that mentality. And
yeah, I know that like the mentoring part is, yeah, he definitely put in like the will and desire. Like, do you want to learn this? Then we'll give you the time for you to learn it. Do you want to do this? Then we're going to give you resources for you to pursue this. So STL has definitely nurtured the will and the desire for not just for me. And the interesting is I'm actually the only for the longest time, I was the only grad student at that lab. The only one. They had a staff, they had engineers, they had everybody working. I was the only grad student for 3 years.
Wow.
It was just me. So it was a little intimidating too, because I felt like there was a lot of expectation, a lot of writing on me as the only grad student at this lab, you know. But I just know that they're willing to pursue avenues that are different. So like my research is a collaborative nature between the physics department and the Department of Physical Therapy and Kinesiology that came up as a random meeting at 2 years ago. So the fact that the lab was willing to pursue this completely different avenue that's not Department of Defense related shows that they're willing to foster that will and desire in me to let me pursue this avenue that's completely different than what the normal workings of the lab. So I'm very blessed and happy that I got into STL, because I think that is where I needed to be. I don't think I could have succeeded anywhere else or be where I'm at.
I don't know if that's true, the last part, but
yeah. Nah. I know myself. I don't think I would have done as well at Knoxville if I gone to Knoxville. Plus my desires to study a certain field changed. I thought I was going to do condensed matter or material science, and I was like, nah, I'm going to do radar. So things change, and it's okay. It's okay.
It's good. Well, it's good. It means you're in a good place, right? You're happy. You're feeling like you're on the right track, and that's the best feeling to have in life. Mm-hmm. So you're in the right place then, right? If it's making you feel like that, it's the right place.
I am excited to be here. I'm proud. I'm happy, and I like the work I've done, and I like Massachusetts. It feels like a second. I feel like I was meant to be here. Like I like it. Like I like Massachusetts. It's a second home. Doesn't mean I forgot or don't miss home. I get homesick pretty often, but I know for me to succeed as a person, as an individual, to blossom and become an adult, I had to be here, or at least outside the house for sure.
Yeah.
Like
of course.
I could. Yeah, it's hard when you're 28 living at home to feel like an adult.
Yeah.
You know, when you have curfews. Can you believe it? Curfews at 28.
Yeah. I mean, that's how my family is too. They
So
were, now that I'm living on my own basically, obviously. They've changed a bit, but like
yeah,
yours have, right?
yeah, they mellowed out, but
Yeah,
they
they
still
mellowed
call.
out.
They're like, sometimes I'm busy. They're like, why don't you call? It's 10 o'clock. I'm like, you know, I have the
Yeah.
luxury of saying no, not right now.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the end, like I think all our journeys are really fruitful, you know, and the fact that you guys are in grad school, speaks to the desire, the will, and the caliber of people you are, because you like have a goal and you see it through, and you're trying to accomplish something, you know. But other people can have different journeys. Some people go straight into a trade school and go into a blue collar job. But as long as I think for me the overarching message is will and desire. If you have those two things, doesn't matter what you pursue, you're gonna do it with your whole
Yep.
heart, and you're gonna be motivated to get it done.
And you're gonna feel good.
That might be the title for the talk.
Okay.
Will and determination.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, good.
Save me some work on that front.
I know you told me like I have to listen through this whole thing and try to find no, like I just saved you 2.5 hours of work. Will and determination. That's the takeaway message.
It's probably days of, should we put that one or not? And then finally we're like, okay, yes, let's use that title.
Yeah, so you can use my name and you can put will and determination.
All right. Excellent. So if someone makes it this far in, you know why that's the title. Right?
Exactly.
All right, so I'm gonna wrap it up here. So like I said, if you made it this far, thank you for listening. Really appreciate it. We love you guys. Check us out on Facebook, on Twitter, and give us a rating and follow us on whatever you're listening to this to. But
yeah, and I'm super happy to finally be on your guys' podcast. I'm a huge fan.
Thanks.
I'm just really happy to. I know this is like a project of love for you guys, so I'm happy to participate and help the homies out.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Get some good content.
Yeah, it was a good conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate, and I'm sure we both appreciate your experience and everything that you shared with us. And it's been motivating for me too, so no, it's actually, it's affected me in a positive way.
A little fire.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'm going to go and do my research,
Feed it oxygen, throw some combustibles, let it burn and rise. Watch out, Joseph. Might burn.
But before we go, let's take a last pick, and I'll take a screenshot, and then we can.
Oh yeah.
We can have it for memories, okay?
Let's see. Let me do a Joe pose.
Joe pose.
Okay, yeah, ready? Joe. I don't know what Joe pose is, but.
Oh, this one. See the one on the.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you put your hand in front.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, cheese. Great, got it.
Perfect. We all did the Joe pose. No, I'm super happy. Thank you so much. The time just flew by. I know it's kind of late, but it did actually fly by.
Good. All right. So thank you everyone for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Good night. Bye-bye.